days to feel disconnected. We're pulled in so many different directions, and that can leave us feeling incredibly fragmented. But together, we can grow more connected to ourselves and to each other. And that is what my new podcast is all about, coming home to our wholeness. Listen and follow Holy Human with me, Leanne Rhymes, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, I'm Gabby.
I'm Taylor.
I'm Nika.
And we're the hosts of a new podcast called
Cadaver Gals. We're just three fun and flirty gals talking about all the fun and flirty ways that people expire.
Like how 3 people died because of a poodle.
Basically, this podcast is kind of like Sex and the City if they only talked about dead people. Join us as we laugh, but mostly cry, in the face of death.
So listen to Cadaver Gals.
New episodes out on Wednesdays.
Listen to Cadaver Gals on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to The Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for The Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go on a Thursday. Great to have you in live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, FS1, 1 hour from now. Greg, Cosell, NFL Meat Sandwich. You bet football, you play fantasy football, you just love to get smarter with football. Greg Cosell, 1 hour from now. Joy Taylor is joining me. Joy, how are you?
This is the last day of 2020. It's doing wonderful.
It's the last day.
Wonderful. Last day of this wretched year. Peace out, 2020. Good riddance.
I feel the exact same way.
Great things ahead.
Great things ahead. Not good things, great things ahead.
We made it, guys.
We did. We got through it. I thought it was interesting yesterday. I talked yesterday, starting the show, about the power of marketing and how, like, Brett Favre is one of you and Wranglers and Walmart and that little razor kit he's got. That feels very us. And Tom Brady is more expensive watches, supermodel wife, Uggs. That's more up there. We tend to get jealous, but it's interesting. So Bruce Arians was talking about Tom Brady in this season as we embark here in a week or two in the playoffs. Here's Bruce Arians, coach of Tom.
The Super Bowl or bust. That's the goal every year. And you can't get to the Super Bowl if you don't get in the playoffs. You know, so getting into the playoffs was huge for us. And it's been a fun year. There's a lot of football left, and we're really excited to be playing.
I disagree. I don't think it's Super Bowl or bust. Let me take you back to Peyton Manning goes to the Denver Broncos. Now, like Brady, he's kind of a free agent. He chose the best team. Denver was good. They'd made the playoffs the year before. Peyton Manning was just 36. He goes to a much more respectable franchise. Denver has always been very well run. Can't find the next Elway, but very run. He has very good stats. See if these sound familiar. 37 touchdowns, 11 picks, a 105 passer rating. Turned an 8-8 team respectable to 13-3. He lost in the playoffs. His first playoff game lost. And the feeling was, all right, it was a success. They'd gone to the playoffs with Tebow. But the sense was Peyton Manning was great in Denver. Tom Brady, like Peyton, chooses the best fit for him, Tampa. He's 7 years older. Now think about that. LeBron had his 36th birthday yesterday. You think I'm going to judge LeBron at 43, same as I am today at 36? 7 years for pro athletes, I don't know, seems significant. Tom delivers great stats. See if these sound familiar. 36 touchdowns, 11 picks, passer rating over 100. He turns around a losing dysfunctional franchise 7-9 to probably this week in 11-5. And if he loses, he will be crushed. So Brady is much older, turns around a much more dysfunctional franchise. Peyton Manning and Denver went 13-3. The division, the rest of the division Peyton Manning faced that year, won 13 games total. Tom Brady goes to a division with a preseason Super Bowl favorite, New Orleans, Hall of Fame coach and quarterback, and Matt Ryan, by the way, is going to get Hall of Fame votes too. He's a former MVP. If Tom Brady loses in the first round of the playoffs. Why isn't he successful? By the way, did Peyton Manning face a pandemic? Peyton Manning got OTAs. Peyton Manning got a preseason. Peyton Manning played in a weaker AFC. Peyton Manning played in a weaker division. Peyton Manning, 7 years younger. It was seen as a success. Tom Brady's 43, worse franchise. Harder division, harder conference. Better quarterbacks in his division. And by the way, year 2 always feels easier. LeBron won a championship in year 2 in Miami, then year 2 in Cleveland, and year 2 in Los Angeles. Peyton Manning, year 2, got to the Super Bowl. We all sort of understand year 1, moving your entire family, offense, coach, system, teammates is tough. I mean, hell, Aaron Rodgers struggled last year, and he didn't have to move or play with new guys. He just got a new coach. Look at the leap Aaron's made. Year 1, Matt LaFleur. Year 2. Just saying, if Tom loses, didn't he do exactly what we thought? Take a dysfunctional franchise and turn them into winners in the playoffs? Of course he's not going to win the division. Peyton Manning didn't have this Saints roster and Drew Brees and Sean Payton in that division. To me, it's not a Super Bowl or bust. Tom's done everything I've asked in year 1. This is absolutely, I predicted a wild card and a win. But if he loses, let's not go crazy. Peyton did, and we still saw it overwhelmingly as a success. It's interesting on the marketing. Peyton's one of us. Tom's supermodel, aspirational Uggs, expensive watches. He's out there. We're still trying to discredit Tom Brady. Brady's team that he left is now a train wreck, New England. Peyton's team that he left, the Colts, won 11 games. Just saying. So Troy Aikman must be a much better sleeper than I am. I am not a great sleeper. I am a 4 or 5 hours, and then it's just, staring at the ceiling. So Troy Aikman is talking about when Dak comes back, the Cowboys have to they're going to give Dak a new contract. Now, as you well know if you've listened to this show, everybody in Dallas kept coming on the show and guaranteeing me Dak would get a long-term deal. And they kept saying, well, they're paying everybody else. Why won't they pay Dak? They didn't. They gave him a franchise tag. And so Troy Aikman says, don't worry about Dak. Don't worry about Dak. He's going to get his money, and if he does, I feel great. Here's Troy.
I wouldn't hesitate at all to pay him. I would sleep real good if I had Dak Prescott locked up with a big contract and not be worrying about his commitment to the team and commitment to winning.
Now that's interesting. Commitment to the team and commitment to winning. Isn't that kind of the base of what I expect, the old Chris Rock joke? I love my kids. Yeah, that's the minimum as a parent. I think every top quarterback in the league, including Dak and Andy Dalton, even Baker Mayfield, who I'm critical of, I think they're committed to winning and committed to teammates. Some guys have egos, some guys are goofy, some guys aren't as responsible, Drew Lock. But I think they're all kind of committed base level to winning and their teammates. I think most quarterbacks are, they've grown up. They know the value of quarterbacking, the importance of it. But I'm just going to play a little what if. If Dallas beats the Giants Sunday, and it's going to be close. It's a 24-23 game. Giants are probably the better bet, but, Dallas, let's say they win. And Washington with a third-string quarterback loses. Dallas is in the playoffs, and Andy Dalton will have gone 5-2 since the bye. And as we talked about yesterday, it's not really fair to judge Andy Dalton. No preseason, inheriting a new coach and a new system and a new team, concussion, COVID. Let's start at the bye with Andy. In fact, let's start at the bye with the Cowboys. They're a different team. If he wins Sunday, he goes 5-2 in his last 7 games, and as I showed you yesterday, the numbers with Dak are virtually the same. And he will want $38 million. That's more than Aaron Rodgers. That's more than Russell Wilson. That's more than Tom Brady. It's almost more than anybody not named Patrick Mahomes. Does that seem like a good business decision? Let me ask you this. If you think Dak is a good quarterback, I do. Good. Not special, not great. Let's go to the last 5 good quarterbacks who got big contracts. Jimmy G, Jared Goff, Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, Matt Stafford. I'll even throw in Carson Wentz. Are any of those teams happy with a contract? I'm going to go big fat NO on that. None of them are. None of them are happy. And I'm not even going to throw the what-ifs out. Oh, yes, I am. What if Andy Dalton beats the Eagles just did and the Giants down the stretch? And the offense looks good, certainly did against Philadelphia. And what if it does Sunday? When Dak last year couldn't generate a touchdown against an injury-ravaged Eagles team. If Dalton wins Sunday, and they look decent offensively, he generates all sorts of touchdowns and beats both of his rivals. Dak couldn't beat one and generate a touchdown against a Philadelphia team that was throwing at lawn furniture. I'm just saying, heaven forbids Dalton wins a playoff game. I won't even go there. So again, it's not anti-Dak. But at the end of this weekend, and it'll be close, it'll come down to the last couple of minutes of the game. If Andy Dalton wins and goes 5-2 down the stretch and has the exact same numbers as Dak, and Dak's wanting 37, 38 million off an ugly injury, man, Troy's a better sleeper than I am, because I would struggle with it. Because I see the Jimmy G contract and the Wentz contract and the Stafford contract and the Goff contract and the Matt Ryan contract. I don't think any of those teams like that contract today. We'll see. That's why football's great. It's why the Giants-Dallas is two losing records. They're not even close. These are right now 5-6 win teams. That's one of the most intriguing NFL games of the weekend. It is fascinating. Word is if the Giants don't win, they may clean house in their front office with Gettleman. I read a story about that this morning. So there's a lot on the line. It's not that I'm rooting for Andy Dalton, but folks, if he goes 5-2 and gets to the playoffs, I'm just saying, and beats both the Eagles and the Giants down the stretch, Dak couldn't even generate a touchdown against Philadelphia. 138, they may franchise again. That's a lot of lettuce. That is a lot of lettuce. All right, coming up next, in my defiant support of Josh Allen, some interesting numbers for the Bills quarterback. USA Today said, if anybody had guts, you just give Josh Allen the MVP. They're not necessarily wrong. I'll lay it out next. Plus, Doug Gottlieb this hour, Greg Cosell next hour.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from E-Trade. Trading isn't for everyone, but E-Trade is. Whether it's saving for a rainy day or your retirement, E-Trade has you covered. They can help you check your financial goals off your list, and with a team of professionals giving you support when you need it, you can be confident that your money is working hard for you. Get more than just trading with E-Trade. To get started today, visit etrade.com/iHeart for more information. E-Trade Securities, LLC. Member FINRA, SIPC. Support for this podcast and the following message come from E-Trade. You want to invest your money, but there's one problem. You're not sure where to begin. Luckily, there's E-Trade, who offers more than just trading. E-Trade simplifies investing without the financial jargon and has the people to offer guidance and support to make your money work hard for you. For more information, visit etrade.com/iHeart. E-Trade Securities, LLC. Member FINRA, SIPC.
USA Today has an article today. If NFL voters had any guts, they'd name Josh Allen MVP. It does take guts sometimes to vote somebody the MVP when there's a sense overwhelmingly of a very popular athlete. Years ago, sports reporter Fred Hickman voted for Allen Iverson MVP. Shaq got every vote except one. Shaq still holds it against him. Hickman was criticized. How can you vote for that? But Allen Iverson was incredibly valuable to the Sixers. He got the Sixers to a finals. What were they without him? They were a playoff team without him. I didn't think he was outrageous. Here's what's interesting. Aaron Rodgers is going to be, and I do think Aaron is incredibly valuable, but Fox Bets has the odds for the MVP, and it's really a two-person race, Aaron and Patrick Mahomes. Josh Allen is considered kind of a complete long shot. I don't think he's going to win it, but it's kind of ridiculous that he's not in the same class, and I'll give you an example. So valuable to me is what do you work with? How important are you? So Mahomes, let's take him, works with a tight end having the greatest tight end season ever, arguably the best tight end in football, arguably a top 5 tight end of all time. A wide receiver named Tyreek Hill, 15 touchdowns, 1,200 yards, fastest player in the NFL, and a head coach in Andy Reid who's probably the best play caller he and Sean Payton last 20 years in football. Aaron Rodgers works with an offensive line that's rated number 1 in pass protection, a wide receiver that leads the league in TD receptions, a running back who's the 4th leading rusher, and a young, clever, progressive offensive coach. Josh Allen works with Stephon Diggs, and that's where it ends. The offensive line is the worst of the 3 in average, running back slightly below average, head coach defensive-minded, and the tight end, you tell me, a non-factor. It's not called BVP, best quarterback, right? It's just most valuable quarterback. MVP, most best quarterback, that's not it. It's most valuable. He's also, by the way, the most valuable asset to his team's overall offense. He's got 8 rushing touchdowns, along with his 34 passing touchdowns. So he is intricate and important for the running game. He's just doing more with less. I mean, people say he's got Stephon Diggs. Even look at what he's done with Stephon Diggs this year. Stephon Diggs was with the very capable Kirk Cousins for years. He averaged 900 receiving yards, 73 catches, and 6 touchdowns without a preseason for a young Josh Allen. He's going to end up with probably 1,500 yards, 125 catches, and 8 or 9 touchdowns. That's with no preseason and no OTA. So all I'm making is the argument that it should be a 3-person race here. I would vote for Aaron, but I've said I would vote for Josh in a close second. I think he's as important and working with less than Aaron with a defensive coach, and defensive coaches see the world differently. They want you to run the ball, eat clock, win by 3, and get out of town. Offensive coaches, their egos are in clever and multiple sets and giving you a different look. That's part of the ego of being an offensive coach. Those are considered the smarter of the coaches, the offensive coaches, the Sean McVays, the Kyle Shanahans, the offensive wizardry. Right, the defensive guys are like tough guys. They beat up the offensive guy in an octagon. You win, you play football, special teams, Brian Flores. You don't want to mess with Tomlin or Brian Flores. They're tough guys. So, I mean, I just kind of look at Josh Allen. I think it's kind of ridiculous. It's not a 3-team race. And I think it's ridiculous that you can't even put him in second without getting pushback. I would have it Rodgers slightly, and I mean slightly above Josh Allen. In fact, Sunday could change it for me, and Mahomes actually a little more distant third. Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
You know what's funny too, Joy? In the NBA, Josh Allen would win it. Because in the NBA, it's about the story, and his story's better. And also in the NBA, Mahomes and Rodgers would be criticized because they're, like super teams. I mean, Mahomes is on a super team. Whereas in the NBA, you get value working with, like, Russell Westbrook, Durant Lee. He gets a triple-double by himself. So Josh Allen as an NBA player would be a much more intriguing story, and he'd probably win it.
I think the issue is, similarly with NBA and with NFL, is the naming of the award. Because we can never decide what is the criteria. Like last year, Giannis got it mainly because he had better numbers than he had the year before when he won.
Yeah.
Like that was just the only argument. Like, well, he won last year and he has better numbers this year. Like, okay, but that's not what the award is. It's not a numbers award. Like, so what is the award? I think doesn't quite roll off the tongue the same way.
Right.
I think it's really most outstanding player.
Yes.
That's really what it is.
Yeah, I think MOP is
Yeah,
what
the
it should
MOP
be.
is not as good as MVP.
Right.
But that's what it is. Like if we reprogram ourselves to stop thinking of the word value and just think who is the most outstanding player this year?
Yeah,
That's really what the award is.
Yeah, and then I would say Aaron Rodgers won, Josh Allen 1A, and Mahomes, who's had a bad December.
But then, doesn't that make you feel more comfortable?
Absolutely.
Giving it to Aaron Rodgers?
Absolutely.
So let's all just decide together.
Well,
Let's all in agreement. We are the truth brokers of the United States of
Honesty
America.
brokers in America.
Yes.
Well, the Heisman have the same issue where it always goes to a quarterback. And there have been years where the best player, like Chase Young, was the best player in college football, but it's just understood the Heisman is just a quarterback award. It's like, or a running back out of a system which runs the ball for, like Clemson's running backs behind a bunch of NFL offensive linemen are always going to have big yards.
Right. Most outstanding player.
Right.
Just reprogram ourselves. So Tua is playing the biggest game of his young career on Sunday. If the Dolphins win, they secure their spot in the postseason. But Tua is not putting any extra pressure on himself to get the win.
I'd say for me, there's really, no extra would say the expectation for myself is very high in how I perform and how I go out there and try to lead the guys to victory. Obviously, this past weekend, I didn't play to that standard, and it's more so like me knowing that we got to go out there and got to get the job done.
Basically, he's saying he always has pressure on himself, so there is no added pressure.
So forget what we say as broadcasters or fans say. If he got benched a third time and looked small against Josh Allen, what do his teammates think? It feels like there is pressure.
There's definitely pressure, especially because I would say that there's added pressure because of where the Dolphins pick in the draft this year. If the Dolphins didn't have Houston's pick, there wouldn't be as much pressure because we'd know this is the guy that you were going to have for at least the next couple of years.
Yeah.
He's obviously not struggling so much that you're going to get a high draft pick.
Right.
So this is the guy, but it makes things interesting that the Dolphins have that top pick. That's really the twist in this story because while I do think that Tua needs more time to develop, he's a rookie. He's going to get compared to Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, as he should, because those are his contemporaries. Whether that's fair or not, again, who cares about fair? Life's not fair. This is what it is. This is a competitive industry. You have to perform, which he knows. But I think that pick is what makes things interesting for Tua.
Listen, if he looks small and gets benched, you cannot tell me columnists will not write about what do you do with that number 3 pick? Like, that feels like pressure to me.
And it's fair. It's fair for them to do that because
absolutely.
This is the world we live in.
That's exactly
they
right.
would lock up the 5 seed with a win. Really, the issue for the Dolphins and the benching is that Ryan Fitzpatrick is able to push it down the field, and Tua is not getting a lot of air yards this season. It's all dink and dunk, and that might not get it done, even though we don't know what Buffalo is going to do with their personnel this weekend. So another team that has to win to get into the playoffs is the Browns. They need to win over the Steelers Sunday to secure their first trip to the postseason since 2002. It's about to be 2021, so that's a long time. And Baker says the team is already in the playoff mindset.
The mentality here is we're in our playoffs just 1 week early. It's win or go home. So that's the mentality for our guys. But we have the talent, we have the scheme. We just have to go out there and execute it. And do our jobs. These are the moments that you ask for when you're little. You dream of playing in the games where it comes down to you have the ball in your hands and you want to take care of business.
So excited for this weekend. It's really an extra, he's right, this is just a bonus playoff weekend. It's a playoff game for them, it's a playoff game for the Dolphins, it's a playoff game for the Cardinals.
I think the line's up to like 10, so they...
Well, Mason Rudolph is getting the start.
Yeah, that's not great.
So, if the Browns lose to the Steelers, they can still make the playoffs. If the Colts lose to the Jags, wouldn't count on that. And the Titans lose to the Texans.
I wouldn't count on that.
And the Ravens and Dolphins both win. So, they're not completely done if they lose, but there's a lot of scenarios that have to go their way. So they want to just control their destiny and get this win, which they should have done last week against the Jets, but obviously they didn't have all their personnel.
Yeah.
So Phillip Rivers is looking to take the Colts to the playoffs in his first season with the team. They need a win and some help to get in, and he realizes this could be his last game in the NFL. He said, it did cross my mind, if things don't go the way you want this weekend, it could be. I guess it's healthy to have that thought because we're not guaranteed anything going forward. He also said he doesn't want this to be the end, but he knows it's a business and he recognizes his age. He did tie Dan Marino for 5th place in the career touchdown with 420 this season. He's also 5th in all-time passing yards.
2 games this year, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, where Indy is clearly the better team in the first half on script. And then in the second half, Lamar and Ben, second half you're off script, right? There's more ad-libbing. You make adjustments at half, but you're off script. And in both second halves, Ben and Lamar look so much better and so much more dynamic. And it's unfair because he also had a really good second half against Green Bay. But those games just stick in my mind. The Baltimore game and the Pittsburgh game, they had control of. And in the second half, he just couldn't make enough plays. And maybe it's unfair, but I just think Chris Ballard looks at that and thinks, we're so close to being like a 12-win team.
Oh, they absolutely are. They have great pieces.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's had a bad season. He's 68.2 completion percentage, 9th in the NFL in passing yards, 23 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Perfectly capable, but he does have limitations.
Big, and
he looks more stable than he did last year with the Chargers offensive line, but we knew that was going to happen. I could see this being his last game, mostly because the quarterback shuffling that's going to go on in this offseason is going to leave team like the Colts open and available. He only has a 1-year deal. Obviously, Sam Darnold, Carson Wentz, these are conversations being had at that position. I mean, imagine if Carson Wentz is there in this situation and you're the Colts. Next season, like, don't you feel a lot better about where the Colts are if Carson Wentz is there?
Oh, God, yes. Absolutely.
I forget the season that Carson Wentz has had this year.
I watched the Steelers-Colts last week, and I said this Monday. All I could think about all game is, God, Carson Wentz would make these teams so much better. Just more dynamic, bigger. And then,
yeah, well, the Steelers are going to be stuck with Ben until Ben decides to leave, and then they'll have to scramble and figure out.
That's not going to be a pretty ending.
Yeah, well, that is definitely what the Steelers do. That is on brand.
Yeah.
They don't have a replacement.
Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
We've got a podcast, All Ball, iTunes, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best. It is. Whether quarterbacks are good or bad, underrated or overrated, it really comes down to a number. It's a salary cap. What can I pay my quarterback? If he's good, you want to pay him about $26 million. If he's great, you may have to pay him $36. And I've said this. I like Dak. And he's better than Dalton. But I've laid this out for 2 days in a row. If Andy Dalton goes 5-2 off a bye, Doug, wouldn't you, and beat Philadelphia and the Giants down the stretch, it is a hard night's sleep saying, I gotta pay Dak 38? Isn't it harder than we're all making it out to be?
It is, and look, I listened to you yesterday, and I thought, finally somebody said it, and it's the idea of, couldn't you pay Andy Dalton like $10 a year, right, for 3 years? Get a viable backup, whether it's a Jameis or a Mariota type, right, somebody who had been a starter, who needs a little bit of, and have him as a viable backup, and collectively, they could make less than $20 million. And I know fans sometimes have trouble understanding this, but if Jerry Jones saves money on a quarterback, he doesn't put it in his pocket, right? He can spread it around to the defense, the holes within that team that need to be shored up. So, and oh yeah, by the way, the smart thing to do with their first-round draft pick would be to trade it and get seconds and thirds. And again, load up with youth on the defense side. Those are the smart things. The thing is, we're yet to see somebody really do that, right? Take a guy who's really good. Great. Dak Prescott is not great. No one can argue with me that he's great. And I don't think anybody would put him in that category, the top 5, top 6, top 7 dudes. Case in point, just like last year, they're beating the bad teams, losing to the good teams. Would you save $20 million a year, $25 million, $30 million a year, and spread it on your defense with a quarterback who, again, no one thinks is great, but if you surround Andy Dalton or an Andy Dalton type with a bunch of guys, they can raise up his level, and he's fine. Do I think Dallas will do that? Of course not. That's not who Jerry Jones is. Is it a fascinating idea that somebody is going... That's kind of what the Chargers tried to do a little bit, right? Was draft the future and start a guy who's fine, and you just surround him with talent. It lasted all of one game. But it's a great idea. I just don't think that anybody, especially the Dallas Cowboys, is going to try and pull it off.
Yeah, no, Dak's going to get his money, but it does. You start looking at Dalton in their first 4 years in the league and how they play now, and the gap is not as it's not as enormous as everybody makes it out to be. Though I do prefer Dak. So here's an interesting one. So Brady is 7 years old and Peyton Manning when he went to Denver, and that's not a small thing. LeBron's 36. At 43, when you're hosting your show and I'm hosting mine, we're not going to hold LeBron to the same standard at 43, at 36. Like it's for you and I, it's not a big gap. For professional athletes, it is gigantic. Peyton Manning went there to a really functional 8-8 team that had been to the playoffs, had the same numbers as Brady, and we were okay with a loss. We were like, you know what? He's really good. This is awesome. Brady's gone to a totally dysfunctional at 43-year-old franchise, turned him around. They may win 11 games, and I have a feeling if he loses in the playoffs, we're like, this isn't good enough. And I'm like, I don't know, Doug. If we know year 2 for LeBron, Peyton Manning, we know year 2 is kind of the year, right? What if Brady loses first round? Is it a failure?
The reality is, no, it's not a failure. The problem is shows like this one, shows that precede yours, undisputed, and speak for yourself. In many people's minds, it will be deemed a failure, especially because Bruce Arians has said Super Bowl or bust, right? He put that out there. The reality is, you're right. I mean, it's one of the reasons, and I know we're not getting to the NBA, but, it's like I'm not as down on the Clippers as everybody else. losses, people forget that LeBron's first year in LA was an abject disaster. They got rid of half the team, they got rid of the coach, and then they won a championship in year 2, which I don't think is crazy to see the Clippers doing. And in the NFL, change is great, transition is really hard, and this has been a tough transition process. But yeah, I mean, look, he's given them signs of life, and signs of competent quarterback play can lead you to a divisional title and a win. But there's a ceiling there. Can't beat the Saints. And if you think that Tampa, and I know Tom has been great in cold weather, if you think they're going into Green Bay in the dead of winter when he struggles to throw the ball deep in warm weather, and he's going to spin it around the yard that doesn't feel like the matchup they want. But I think generally he's made the best of a hard situation. Has it been an A+? Have they blended the two styles? No. Is it getting better? Yes. It's really hard to tell because when we saw Brady, play against Detroit, he couldn't have looked better. But I mean, that was one of the worst, least energetic performances we've seen in the NFL from the Detroit Lions, maybe in the history of the sport. A complete laydown in a dome, perfect scenario. I don't think that's who he is. If they get to the playoffs and they win a game, is the season a success? I think generally the answer is yes, but I'd have to see the play calling, because the big thing has been, will Arians come off his high horse about Brady throwing the ball downfield? Will he let Brady be Brady and run those option routes on third down? If he does, then I think it's a win that the two have generally worked it out. But if he goes down, blaze of glory, throwing the ball downfield, interceptions, misfires, under a ton of pressure, holding the football longer than he wants to, then Arians has to go, because he is not down with how Tom Brady likes to win, and then I would think it wouldn't be as successful as the record would lead you to.
On to the basketball topic here. I said yesterday, it is amazing how great Brady is. There's always a sense we're trying to kind of discredit it. It's the system, which is nonsense because Josh McDaniels had the system in multiple places, and it didn't work anywhere. In the Rams, he was 32nd in scoring. Denver, 20th. This year, 25th. So I don't buy into the system. And same with LeBron. There's a little discrediting. He goes to great teams. And I said the other day, Brady and LeBron are not as beloved as Favre and Jordan, because the marketing was different. Jordan and Favre did Hanes and hot dogs and Gatorade and Wranglers, and they were one of you, even though we don't think MJ hangs with everybody. But Brady and LeBron are like Beats and Uggs and Aspirational and avocado ice cream, and it separates from us. And that is why Favre is more beloved than Brady, though Brady's 1,000 times better. And Jordan is still more popular than LeBron, even though LeBron's going to shatter everything he's done. That's my takeaway on why. Your thoughts?
It's the branding.
I think the branding is more relatable with Jordan and Favre. It's very Oreos and hot dogs and Hanes. And by the way, Jordan wasn't always a good teammate. Favre wasn't always a good teammate. Brady and LeBron are great teammates.
I mean, I just saw LeBron on an AT&T ad. I mean, there's a lot of stuff with him as a parent. He started a school. I mean, look, the last thing anyone's going to get me to do, not you, would be to take shots at LeBron, the human being. Can he be hard to deal with? Yes. Does he have to have it his way? Yes. But I will say that he did buy in to a coach he hadn't played for and he'd only beaten last year, and his buy-in and his leadership was the reason they won the championship in the bubble. More so than anything else, Anthony Davis' spectacular ability to go along with his leadership and his play. But I just think, look, we're trying to compare eras. It's different, right? It's just different. You could get away with the things that Favre could get away with interception-wise, right? You can't get away with that. Now we're about efficiency. And that's why Rodgers is incredible. Rodgers doesn't turn the football over, which is the number one determinant into who wins and loses games. In terms of, I think the Jordan and the LeBron thing is very similar. Same shoe company, although obviously Jordan has Jordan Brand, which was established. LeBron's going to be a billionaire when he's done with Nike, if he's ever done with Nike. I just think we're trying to compare eras, and things are so different now with all of the debate shows like yours, podcasts and all the different, and every game is nationally televised. I just think right now we're reaching a point of LeBron fatigue, and that's why there's a little bit of pushback. There's a little bit of Brady fatigue, and that's why there's a pushback. It's not as much them, it's that we haven't seen enough competition for either of them at the top level, and that's no fault of their own, right? Like, Kevin Durant beat LeBron twice in a row, and he would have won a third championship. but he got hurt, and they missed a year. And so there was no, and the Clippers fell apart. So there was no direct competition. That's not either of their fault, but I think the reality is they're all corporate superstars. They're all all-time legends, and Brady is different than Favre, but it was also a different era, so we have to view it as such and judge it as such.
All right, we got to go. That was good. Where are you watching?
Wait. I got one thing.
No. We don't have time. It's commercials and stuff. It's a very popular show. Like, advertisers line up for this, Doug. We're very, very busy here.
I know.
Yeah, we're very. It's so disappointing. Like a kid.
Happy New Year, Joe. Happy New Year to Joy. Happy New Year to
Happy New Year.
All right, Doug Gottlieb. Good stuff. The Doug or Fox Sports Radio after our show. Greg Cosell, top of next hour. One of the things I want to talk about is tomorrow's big college football games. I think Ohio State is going to keep it really close against Clemson. I just bet the Buckeyes plus 7.5 in the under. I think it's going to be I think the D-line for Ohio State is going to kind of control Clemson's offensive line. I don't know who wins. It's going to be really, really close, and it's going to be kind of an ugly, low-scoring game. Low-scoring 24-23-ish. I think Alabama probably rolls. But, you know, we're going to go to an 18 playoff here pretty soon. And one of the reasons is because of COVID and pandemics, these athletic departments need money. Like the big dogs, like Oklahoma needs money, and Ohio State and Wisconsin and Alabama. So we're going to go to an 18 playoff because that's going to be the ATM machine for all these. But I really have a strong feeling is when we go to 8, and it may be next year. I'm not joking. It may be right after National Letter of Recruit Day. The next month we may go to 8. Why nothing is going to change. And I'll talk about the 2 games tomorrow. That's coming up, The Herd.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
At the right time, the right story can work magic. And right now, we could all use a boost. I'm actor Anupam Kher, and on my new podcast, Anupam Cares, I will share stories with you from my life, from growing up in the Himalayan foothills to acting in over 500 Bollywood films. I will also be bringing you stories of untold heroes from around the world to lift our spirits and remind us that anything can happen. Find Anupam Cares on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Become the most interesting person you know now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
M-Drive, check it out. Powerful ingredients backed by science. Go to mdriveformen.com today. Free shipping, 60-day money-back guarantee. So tomorrow, our Final Four in college football is kind of typical. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and this year the 4th team is Notre Dame. You know I'm a big fan of Brian Kelly. I do believe at least in the next 2 years we will expand to an 8-team playoff. That is fine. Joy, I think you were telling me yesterday, you've kind of turned, you want it. Listen, if it means more March Madness feel to college football and less of these insipid bowl games that nobody watches or nobody goes to, I'm fine with it. I think from an entertainment standpoint, it's probably best for you, the fans. It's probably best for me, the talk show host. It puts more people in the party, more hope. But I just want to realize the more March Madness expanded to 68 teams, it's still the 6 programs that mostly you look at every year. And my feeling is, right now, we've got 3 of the 4 teams we know are going to be in it, and Notre Dame's the 4th team. So if you went to an 8-team playoff, would it look the same 7 or 8 teams? I think it absolutely would. This is my belief of the 8 teams that will dominate an 8-team playoff. And at the end, I'll tell you they all have one thing in common. Number 1 would be Clemson. Why? Unlike other powers, they do not lose their assistant coaches. They've won 31 of 32 ACC games. So they're in the weakest conference of all the powers. Dabo's in his coaching prime, and they don't lose their assistants. Number 2 would be Alabama. They do lose their assistants, and the SEC is harder. So you have little semi-roadblocks, much harder to go undefeated in the SEC. But Nick Saban is signed through 2025, and he's the best coach to me, the best overall architect in college football history. Number 3, Ohio State. Like ACC football champion Clemson, they have separated from their conference. Now, the Big Ten is better than the so many overpowering, dominating wins. They're a recruiting power. Ryan Day is a hot young coach that everybody now says may have an NFL future. They're 22-1 under Ryan Day in the Big Ten. Michigan is no threat. Wisconsin doesn't have the talent. And Penn State's good and can be threatening but less consistent. Number 4 would be Oklahoma. Again, like Clemson, if Texas doesn't come back, it's a conference in which, as a top 8 recruiting power, they just have better players. They also have never been afraid to play an SEC team. They crushed another one last night in Florida. They've gone toe-to-toe with SEC teams. They recruit against them. They don't fear them. They can score on them. They ran up and down the field on the Gators defense last night. And since Lincoln Riley became the coach, they have had the number 1 passer efficiency rating, and that's with a lot of transfer quarterbacks. He's figured out the math on offense in the Big 12. They're going nowhere. Number 5 would be Georgia. I don't think Kirby Smart is in the same class of coach as Dabo, as Saban, as Lincoln Riley. But they may be the first or second best job in college football. It's a great city, Athens. It's a recruiting power. Georgia's got 9 million people and as many recruits as California with 38 million people. It may be the best recruiting state per capita in the country, and Kirby Smart is a great recruiter. They got nothing but NFL bodies. They're the only team in the SEC that on an annual basis plays Alabama, and you watch the games and think they have as many NFL guys as Alabama. LSU occasionally does, but they're not in this list because I don't think they know who their coach is in the next 5 years. Number 6 is Notre Dame. They are starting to pull away from their 2 big out-of-conference rivals, Stanford and USC. That is significant. That's 2-0. They're not as good in ACC as Clemson. They beat them this year, backup quarterback. But Brian Kelly's contract, 4 more years on it. He's won 73% of his games. He's worked with 5-6 different quarterbacks. They recruit at a level that Notre Dame has not recruited since Lou Holtz. They're going to be in this 8-team playoff virtually every year. Number 7, Oregon. They've separated from the Pac-12. Mario Cristobal is a great recruiter. They are beating Alabama on offensive linemen. He's a former offensive lineman. They got nothing but NFL guys up front. They just put 3 NFL guys on their offensive line, maybe 4 in the NFL. They've separated from the conference. They had the number 1 recruiting class once again in the Pac-12 for the 2nd straight year. So I know for the next 4 or 5 years, they got NFL bodies. They really crush in California recruiting. I'm down here. I see it. Oregon's going to be in that 8-team playoff a ton when it starts. And I would say number 8 was my toughest choice. I would put Florida in over Texas A&M. I like Dan Mullen more than Jimbo Fisher. I think Florida is a more attractive place for recruits. I think Mullen's an offensive coach in an increasingly offensive-leaning SEC. He does lose occasionally to unranked opponents, but it's a state school in an amazing recruiting state. And I think all of the coaches, all 8 of them, have one thing in common. They've all got a presence. None of those coaches are leaving where they're at. If Saban was 45, he would. None are leaving where... All those head coaches are staying where they're at. They all have a presence. They're all recruiting powers. Those 8, to me, dominate college football going forward. Greg Cosell, NFL Meat Sandwich, next hour 2 in L.A. It's the Herd.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeart Radio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
There is a Hindi phrase I love. Kuch bhi ho sakta hai. It means anything can happen. And from my own experience, I know it's true. I'm actor Anupam Kher. You might know me from Silver Linings Playbook or one of my Bollywood films. But in my podcast, Anupam Cares, I wanted to share some things you may not know about me. I grew up in Shimla, a remote hill station in India, in the Himalayan foothills. And as a boy, it was a world full of possibilities. It's where I had my first kiss, where my father became obsessed with our local bread seller, and where I learned my most important lesson about failure. I will also be bringing you stories of untold heroes from around the world to lift our spirits. After all, it's the stories we tell ourselves that shape how we live, the good, the bad, and the surprising. But let's focus on the good. Find Anupam Cares on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. That's ANUPAM. Anupam Cares.
Hey, I'm Gabby.
I'm Taylor. I'm Nika.
And we're the hosts of a new podcast called
Cadaver Gals. We're just three fun and flirty gals talking about all the fun and flirty ways that people expire.
Like how 3 people died because of a poodle.
Basically, this podcast is kind of like Sex in the City if they only talked about dead people. Join us as we laugh, but mostly cry, in the face of death.
So listen to Cadaver Gals.
New episodes out on Wednesdays.
Listen to Cadaver Gals on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's pretty easy these days to feel disconnected. We're pulled in so many different directions, and that can leave us feeling incredibly fragmented. But together, we can grow more connected to ourselves and to each other. And that is what my new podcast is all about, coming home to our wholeness. Listen and follow Holy Human with me, Leanne Rhymes, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Become the most interesting person you know now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
Thanks for listening to The Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for The Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go. It is hour 2. You're live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. Did you see the holiday present I got from the WWE? Massive.
I will say, amongst this ridiculous year, there have been some things, some blessings that we've gotten. Like, for example, following on Instagram is a great addition.
Why is that?
I just think you're great on Instagram.
Well, I am raw. I'm usually relaxed.
Yes, it's a very different side of you. Because people always ask me how you are. They think you're very serious.
People do?
Yes.
All right, whatever.
I mean, you take what you do serious.
Yeah, I'm not, but
as you should.
I'm joking.
But yeah, I mean, you have a good time. That's why I think the Instagram is great.
All right, so I do all that every couple nights, not too much. Every couple nights, but my recent one, I got a big gift from WWE.
It's very nice.
It's like a massive gift.
It's a giant, like WWE ring.
I think.
That's cool.
Diamonds and gold. Greg Cosell in a couple minutes. This is interesting. The Chiefs will not play Patrick Mahomes this week. I would play him. Andy Reid's smarter than me, but I'd play him. 3 of the last 4 quarterbacks who got a bye and didn't play Week 17 have lost. And they're all great. Big Ben to the Jags, MVP Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers. 15-1, earned a bye, didn't play Week 17, lost. The only winner was Drew Brees 2 years ago, and his first pass in the playoff game was picked. He was rusty. Just something to think about. And by the way, that means his last game playing, Patrick, he did not play well against Atlanta. He was 24 of 48, or 44, in an 80 passer rating. And 4 times in December, his 4 straight games of passer rating under 100, so he's not playing well. So he's going to go from December 27th to January 17th. And he wasn't sharp on December 27th. It's something. Belichick didn't like to give Brady or anybody a bye. So it's very reminiscent of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, like Mahomes, had an MVP in the Super Bowl, went 15-1, and they gave him the final week off. He came out against the Giants, and the whole team was awful. And, unlike Mahomes, Aaron's last game he did play in Week 16, he was unbelievable. I think you could look it up. He had 4 or 5 touchdown passes. So I don't think Mahomes is playing particularly well. Of their defensive issues in red zone. It's something to think about. Belichick never liked to give people time off. Tony Dungy did, so there's two ways to do it. But it's interesting. With that, Greg Cosell, love him on Thursdays, every Thursday at this time. 41 years NFL Films is joining us. You know, it's funny about that, Greg. Some coaches give guys off, some don't. We'll get to Mahomes in a second, but I want to start with this, is that one of the reasons baseball, I was a big baseball fan as a kid. Me
too.
It's very numbers oriented, and one of the things I like about football, there's less numbers. It's more about winning and performance, and I just like that. It's a fight every Sunday. Whoever wins, you move on. They're the champ. And I look at Lamar Jackson, and I know there's issues, but I've seen him in second halves against the Colts defense, and I've seen him in these games have a lot of touch. He's not a beautiful thrower, but I look at that team, Greg, and I don't think their quarterback is what worries me. There are times there's things I worry about, but you watch every film. Is he advancing? Are they dangerous? What do you make of Baltimore going into the playoffs if they get there?
Well, they're dangerous for sure. Their run game is really difficult to defend. They've actually expanded their run game concepts this year. Their pass game clearly works off their run game. It's not the foundation of what they do. But one area in which they're so good, Colin, is the red zone. And when you score touchdowns in the red zone, you know, I was researching for a piece I did for my matchup show this week on Lamar in the red zone. The last two seasons, he has 44 touchdown passes and no interceptions in the red zone.
Wow.
And they are really, really good with pass game concepts in the red zone. That's where Greg Roman and James Urban do such a good job. Their pass game concepts are phenomenal. They threw a touchdown this week to Des Bryant, in which everybody probably thought it was a bust because Bryant was open in the tight red zone. It was not a bust. And if you break the play down, which I did, it's not a bust at all. They're just so good attacking and breaking down zone coverage concepts in the red zone.
Yeah, that's a gem stat, because I look at them and I wouldn't want to face them, and all I know is in these big third downs, they're a very good third down team. They're a very good red zone team. And Greg, as you know, the playoffs, you win if you get touchdowns, you lose if you get field goals, and they get touchdowns. So I want to go to Tua. So he's been benched twice. You can fool me, but you can't fool guys in the locker room. If he goes to Buffalo and gets benched the third time, you can try to convince him he's a home run. But what does the tape say about Tua? Because I do believe yards per game passing, he doesn't feel dynamic. He doesn't feel special. What does the tape say?
No, and I think what the tape shows, and that's all we're talking about what the tape shows here. What the tape shows right now is a quarterback that's struggling to see things clearly. So what happens is they're defining route concepts for him, and the throws are there, Colin, and he's not making those throws. And to me, that's the reason he's getting benched. Not because you might miss one here or there, or because you get sacked, because the Raiders actually did a very good job with a lot of their rush concepts. But the point is they're designing concepts, and he's not turning it loose to the receiver that should be getting the football. So right now, he's just not seeing things clearly. And the other thing to keep in mind, their offense with him is pretty condensed. And I know a lot of people are probably saying, oh, well, he threw the deep ball at Alabama. Well, they're with him every day with that coaching staff. So if they run a condensed offense and with fairly basic route concepts with him, then they believe that's what he can do at this point.
Yeah.
And they're not going to ask him in their mind to do things that they don't think he can do.
Yeah, I think it's well said. So I said, even though with Fox Bet, it's Rodgers, Mahomes, and a distant third Josh Allen MVP, he's a fascinating kid. He didn't get recruited out of high school. He goes to Wyoming. You and I talked about this before he got drafted. He was a wild pony. He was all over the map. His first year in the NFL, his first 20 games in the NFL, he just wasn't accurate. I watch him this year, and I tell you what, he is a handful. He reminds me so much of a young Big Ben. He can run. He's huge. He's got the arm. Are you a little shocked at the jump from even mid last year to this year?
Well, what is really fascinating is the increase in precise ball placement.
Yes.
Because, we know what he is in terms of a physical talent, but he is now making throws that require pace. throw this past week to Dawson Knox, that it's what we call a firm touch throw. And those are the throws that make a quarterback a passer, not a thrower. And he's gotten so much better at that. And those short throws now are precise. He puts the ball in positions where receivers can run after catch. Because run after catch is a quarterback stat, not a receiver stat. And it's truly amazing. But talent level, it's funny. And then, you and I will start talking about college quarterbacks soon. But what we always hear is Trevor Lawrence is a generational talent. Well, I have no problem saying this. And if people think I'm wrong, fine. But Josh Allen's more talented than Trevor Lawrence. So I guess is Josh Allen a generational talent?
No, I love that you said that. But from an arm standpoint, there's not a lot out there that looks like Josh Allen. That's all I know. He's incredible. So in the last month, I'm getting a lot of heat because I've said, listen, when Pittsburgh was 11-0, I kept saying, I don't care what the record is. They don't look like an 11-0 offense to me. You can't win playoff games with that. And now I've said in the last month with Kansas City, something doesn't look right to me. They're just not clicking offensively. Mahomes' passer rating's down. They're still dangerous as heck. But they don't quite feel right offensively. What is it, or am I wrong?
Well, Mahomes did not play well this past week. And again, all I'm telling you is what the tape showed, Colin. That's what I do. I'm not making a bold judgment about what Patrick Mahomes is going to be, 2 weeks from now. But in this past game, he was indecisive in the pocket. I don't think he saw things particularly well. He rushed himself. He missed some routine throws with poor ball location. I thought he moved and drifted when he didn't need to. And what he did when he did that is he created his own pressure. It was a little loose this week. Now, he has that tendency anyway, and then makes special plays. But the special plays did not happen this week. Yeah. So, again, I'm just telling you what this week showed. But he did not play particularly well.
I really believe Greg Cosell, 41 years NFL films. I believe, and it was one of the things I noticed very early about Michael Jordan. The game looked easy to him. It looks easy. But Justin Herbert, it just comes it really comes easy. And I watch Aaron right now, and he is almost smiling as he plays. Have they simplified the offense? Have they made it more Aaron conducive? He's playing with an ease that I just don't remember him playing with.
Yeah, I guess the way I'd answer that is he's in his second year in an offense with Matt LaFleur that is structurally different than the offense he was in with Mike McCarthy. And I'd say it this way, Colin. With LaFleur's offense, it's very play design, scheme-based. That's sort of that offense. It's progression-based. I think with McCarthy, I think that it was more matchup-based. So I think now in his second year with LaFleur, he has a very good sense. Because Rodgers is smart as a whip. He has a very good sense of the whole play design and scheme and progressions. And if you notice one thing, Colin, when you watch Rodgers, notice he doesn't run around as much as he's done the last 4 or 5 years.
No question.
He's playing very much within the structure and the timing and rhythm of an offense that's ultimately built that way. Because don't forget, Matt LaFleur's background, because he's a young coach, is Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. So it's very much schematic and progression-based, and I'm sure Rodgers is just feeling more and more comfortable within that context.
So sometimes there's things I can't explain, like Mitch Trubisky's recent success. Not a fan, but Dave Wannstedt told me at the start of the year, he said, if you have a good defense, you can win a bunch of games with Mitch. I'm not sure if you can win the game, but what has Chicago done in the last 3 to 4 weeks? They're dropping 30 points a game, Greg.
Yeah, but their offense, and again, Trubisky's no different than he was before they've done this. They've run the ball really effectively. They keep their pass game very basic, very simple. He's not a drop-back passer. That's his limitation. So ultimately, if you can do play action boot, RPOs, stay ahead of schedule, play pretty good defense, then he can do what Wannstedt said. He can be an effective quarterback, an efficient quarterback within that context. But there are some pretty significant limitations to his game, and if a certain game plays out in which they need to drop back and throw, you'll see those limitations come out.
So I like the Rams over the Seahawks, and then at the end of the first half and end of the game, Russell Wilson, just playing with incredible urgency and accuracy, did what Russell Wilson does. That's why it separates. separates him from the Jared Goffs and the Kirk Cousins. He just makes plays in big, crucial spots. But it is interesting. I do believe when Seattle's running game is healthy, they're very viable. They were healthy Sunday, and they still clunked around a lot offensively. Give me your thoughts about, is their personnel a little overrated? Is their offensive line struggling? But what do you see with Seattle's offense?
I don't think Russell Wilson's playing very good football right now, Colin, to be honest with you. Can he make a splash play? Of course he can. But he's been indecisive. He's been impatient in the pocket. He's tentative, turning it loose. I think he leaves the pocket premature. Now, and again, he can make those kinds of plays, but even plays, he had a 24-yard completion to Lockett on the fourth quarter touchdown drive in which he ran up in the pocket for no reason at all and was late with the throw. It's just Lockett was wide open on the crosser. But he is not playing real well right now, and he hasn't been for a number of weeks. And if you notice, they're not scoring that many points on a consistent basis. So I think they're probably trying to figure out what they want their offense to be. They obviously let Russ cook for the first 6-7 weeks, and he was phenomenal. And then it sort of changed. And now will they go back to running the ball as their foundation, or will they try to figure this out, still putting the ball in Russell's hands? But he's going to have to play better, I think.
Yeah, I think you're figuring it out. That's what it looks like on my television set. They're trying to figure out exactly what they are right now, and it hasn't been fluid. So I've been on 2 days I've been on this. Listen, if you go to Dak and Andy Dalton's first 4 years in the league, it's the same quarterback. If you go to their last 6 or 7 games under this staff, it feels like the same quarterback. Is that I think Dak's in 2020 a better athlete. He could move the pocket more with him. But I've always thought Andy Dalton with protection is a very accurate distributor of the football. Doesn't have the biggest arm. He's not the greatest athlete. But I do think they have a chance to win Sunday. And if they do, they're 5-2 off a bye. And Dak couldn't beat Philadelphia at the end of last year. He would have beaten Philadelphia and the Giants this year. And Philadelphia's a lot healthier this year than last year. So I guess I'm in a weird position of defending a quarterback I don't love. But what does the film say to you?
Well, we know what Andy Dalton is. I mean, obviously, they've scored over 30 points in each of the last 3 games, and Dalton's been pretty efficient. And they've been efficient using him with what he is. Play action, get him out of the pocket a little bit on design boot action. And by the way, I thought Ezekiel Elliott looked the best he has all season last week against the Eagles. So Dalton, Dalton's one of those guys that people like to talk about as not being very good. It's the Kirk Cousins thing. You guys that people say, oh, you got to do better than that. These guys aren't very good, but they can line up and play and be very effective in this league. And Dalton, obviously, the offensive line has not been great this year, but he has good receivers. If the run game works, he can be very efficient, and they scheme plays for him, and that's what you do with quarterbacks like that. You scheme plays.
So let's see. Your play of the week is with Andy Dalton.
Yeah, and it's a third down play. It's third and short. And third and short in this league, Colin, is a man-to-man down and distance for the defense. So let's take a look at the play. It's the 52-yard touchdown to C.D. Lamb. And as I said, this is a third and short play, and what you got was man coverage by the Eagles. And it was a really well-designed play by the Cowboys. Because what you're going to see here is they're going to line up in a 3-by-1 set with a bunch up top. C.D. Lamb is the outside man in the bunch. Bunch is a good thing when you're anticipating man. Now, there's Nickel Roby-Coleman. He's over the point man, but when C.D. Lamb goes in motion here, because Roby-Coleman is actually the slot corner, he's going to run with him. Of course, that validates the man coverage. They knew they were getting that anyway. So what you're going to get here is C.D. Lamb gets free access off the line. That's what you want. You don't want him jammed off the line. Now, Roby-Coleman jumps outside and takes away the outside. So what happens is Lamb does a great job of cutting inside, and it ends up being a wheel route, and he's just a really good receiver, obviously. But just that kind of design is what I'm talking about. You go 3rd and 3, you know what you're going to get, you call a play in which it's defined read and throw for Andy Dalton, and he can make those.
Yeah, he has for the last 3 weeks. Greg Cosell, NFL Films. Great talking to you. Happy holidays, Greg.
You too, Colin. Thanks a lot.
Good stuff. Ohio State, Clemson. We're going to talk about that coming up with a Big Ten Network analyst, outspoken guy. Can't wait for that. A former Buckeye. Plus, Carson Wentz. Could he write the Eagles a $20 million check and write himself out of Philadelphia? It's an interesting idea. It's not far-fetched. It would get him to the Colts, and I want to discuss it. I think it's a really smart idea.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from E-Trade. Trading isn't for everyone, but E-Trade is. Whether it's saving for a rainy day or your retirement, E-Trade has you covered. They can help you check your financial goals off your list, and with a team of professionals giving you support when you need it, you can be confident that your money is working hard for you. Get more than just trading with E-Trade. To get started today, visit etrade.com/iHeart for more information. E-Trade Securities LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Support for this podcast and the following message come from E-Trade. You want to invest your money, but there's one problem. You're not sure where to begin. Luckily, there's E-Trade, who offers more than just trading. E-Trade simplifies investing without the financial jargon and has the people to offer guidance and support to make your money work hard for you. For more information, visit etrade.com/iHeart. E-Trade Securities LLC, member FINRA SIPC.
Final Sunday of the regular season kicks off with the Cowboys in a must-win game against the Giants, and the Bears try to win their way into the playoffs against the Packers squad gunning for the top seed in the NFC. For other regional action, check local listings for the games in your area, only on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
I just talked to a very wise odds maker today, a very smart, sharp, a wise guy. Loves the Bears Sunday. Loves the Bears. This is somebody who makes a living betting tens of thousands of dollars on games. He loves the Bears. I know that's not my inclination, but Packers, they've got the win over Tennessee. It validated them. Chicago's on fire. Has struggled. They're trying to play their way in. Trubisky's hot.
I mean, I don't trust the Bears, but
I'm just telling you, it made me pause.
he likes some
a lot.
Yeah?
A lot of money.
Well, who am I to question the wise guys?
That's right. Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
By the way, you were good in snakeskin.
You know what? I told you I'm trying to be festive for all the holidays in 2020, so
it matches.
I was in Vegas last year for New Year's Eve, which I actually had completely forgotten about.
If I wore a shirt like that, I'd look like a character from Boogie Nights.
That's exactly what popped to my mind. I don't know if that's the look you're trying to go for.
You would look.
You can pull snakeskin off. I mean, why not though? I would like to see. You know what would be fun? It would be like a fun webisode. Would be like Cam Newton shopping for you, and then like you have to wear whatever.
That is good.
I would love to see that.
So would I.
Because I actually don't think he would go that outrageous. Like I think he would like kind of send his style out.
Cam also is good looking, so he looks good in clothes. But Cam is one of those people you could put him in anything. He would just look great.
That's true. So there's a lot going on right now. We just found out 8 minutes ago, Tom Pelissero just tweeted, Ryan Fitzpatrick has tested positive for COVID-19.
Oh, snap. So Tua plays.
So it's all on Tua.
No benching Tua.
I like it.
You do.
Sharks are born swimming. I say it all the time. I don't know if it makes sense and applies to this, but in my mind, you gotta figure it out. Sink or swim. It's time to go, Tua.
Oh my.
Find out what you got.
He said there's no pressure. There's pressure now.
No pressure now. Kyler Murray suffered a lower leg injury at the end of the Cardinals' loss to the 49ers last week, and that put his availability for a very important game for the Cardinals against the Rams in jeopardy. But Kyler put any questions to rest yesterday. He told reporters he's feeling good and he will play on Sunday.
That's good.
If the Cardinals beat the Rams, they're in. If they lose, they're out. So another basically playoff game for the Cardinals. There's several of these this weekend. The Rams will be without Jared Goff. John Wolford will start. So congrats to everyone who was talking about benching Jared Goff earlier in the season.
Yeah.
Sunday's your day.
John Wolford pronounced the L. He said it's Wolford, and I'll say this: I don't know if they'll score. Nothing against John Wolford, but then
is also out on the COVID list. Their running back Darrell Henderson is out with an ankle injury, and Cam Akers is making progress, but is uncertain for Sunday. So the Cardinals should win this game convincingly, and they have to if they want to get into the playoffs. So the Bucs will end their 13-year playoff drought this season. Expectations were obviously very high for Tom Brady this year, although, in all fairness, in a COVID-shortened season, a quarterback with a new team,
new 20 years, new playbook.
should probably be given a little bit of grace, but when you're the GOAT, you don't get that. And Bruce Arians said that just making the playoffs is not enough.
The Super Bowl or bust. That's the goal every year. And you can't get to the Super Bowl if you don't get in the playoffs. So getting into the playoffs was huge for us. And it's been a fun year. There's a lot of football left, and we're really excited to be playing.
I love someone on the call. They really felt that line. Bruce like, it is a line. Can't get the Super Bowl if you don't get in the playoffs. It's true. And I understand why Bruce Arians has a lot of faith because he's gone to Super Bowl with a team that was a wild card team, the Steelers. So he's confident in that, as he should be. And he knows that's Tom Brady. I don't think they're a Super Bowl team.
I think they're really good against bad teams, and they struggle against good ones, and that's never a Super Bowl team. So I think they're a playoff team, and they're a playoff first-round winning playoff team.
Yes.
But they're not going to New Orleans. They're not going to Green Bay. They're not going to Seattle. They have shown no ability to go on the road and beat teams like that this year, so why would I think they can?
In a normal year, I would say this with 100% confidence that they weren't a Super Bowl team. Now, I don't think they're good enough to go to Super Bowl and win it.
Right.
But this is a different year.
There
are a lot of different factors. We just talked about Fitzpatrick being out with COVID. Like, there's a lot of things that can happen in this next month headed to the Super Bowl. So they have enough, but can they put it all together in the playoffs? I don't know. With Tom Brady, I'll give him a little couple percentage points because he's done it that many times. Either way, they're going to be a fun team to watch in the playoffs. So it was kind of a historic night in the NBA last night. LeBron James celebrated his 36th birthday, becoming the first player. Well, he celebrated it by becoming the first player in NBA history to have 1,000 straight games with at least 10 points. He's held the record for the longest streak since 2018 when he passed MJ his mark of 866 games with at least 10 points, and he's just continuing to build on it. The last time he failed to have double-digit points in the regular season was January 5th of 2007. He only had 8.
I'm still waiting for the decline. I guess it's very Brady-like. Tom still throws the ball like he did 7 years ago. I don't feel he's quite. He doesn't move quite. You know what? With Tom, a lot of it's psychology. He just doesn't want to get hit. Like at 36, he was willing to get hit.
He always hated getting hit, but
now
now it's like, really? I don't want to be touched.
Yeah, Tom, you can tell. He didn't want to get hit. And there is the difference between LeBron and his age. When he broke into the league, he was such a fierce shot blocker and defender, and he no longer is. He was very good against Miami situationally. Like Brady. Brady will take a hit. If it's fourth quarter of a playoff game, he'll take a hit.
Well, one thing about Brady and LeBron is they're going to continue to evolve. So as their bodies change, they're going to change how they work out, how they train the offseason, what they eat, what they do while they're working out. And how they play the game. Like, they're both such scholars and have such brilliance for their individual sports. They're going to continue to adjust. So I don't think LeBron's game looks anything like his early years, but he doesn't look like he's taking a step back at all. And a lot of that has to do with he treats his body like it's his job.
Offensively, I think his game has never been more nuanced, smart, and dynamic.
He's always been a brilliant passer.
And a ball handler, and he's got a real sense of space. But I do think defensively, he can give it to you in little micro bursts, but he's not going to give you 40 minutes of...
Yeah, but that's really all you need. Yeah. Also want to give a shout out to Becky Hammond becoming the first woman to act as an NBA head coach last night in the game for the Spurs. Popovich's ejection.
So I was going to say, I read the story. I read the headline, not the story. So he was ejected.
Yes. Well, the last time this happened, Tim Duncan stepped in. So
he retired or got out of coaching, I think, didn't he?
Tim Duncan?
Is he still there?
I think he's still there.
Oh, okay.
But yes, so Becky Hammond stepped in for Pop last night, so congrats to her.
Way to go, Becky. And we should get her on the show.
Yeah.
Enjoy the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Live
So
News.
Joy touched on it. I think it's significant. So Tua said earlier there's no pressure. I don't feel any pressure. You can pretend like in life there's no pressure. It feels like pressure. So Ryan Fitzpatrick is out, and that means it's on Tua. And I've said this. And Joy said this. They have the number 3 pick in the draft now, Miami. They're never going to have that again. They have a great defense, a great coach, and tremendous special teams. The quarterback is the thing missing. Their defense is better than Buffalo. Their special teams have been better than Buffalo. Their head coach is at least as good as Buffalo's. The difference is they got Josh Allen and one's got Tua. And we judge quarterbacks almost solely on how they perform under pressure. That's why Kirk Cousins' numbers are unbelievable. But Stephon Diggs said, get me out of here. Because he didn't feel in prime time Kirk Cousins could deliver. And in fairness, he hasn't. That was the Andy Dalton knock for years. The numbers were fine. I mean, a Pro Bowl. What's he like in the prime? So this is a primetime game for Tua. This is the biggest game of his career. And if he shrinks, I think it's something. It doesn't matter what I think. But you do lose guys in the locker room. And now you're going to have to stick with Tua. And Joy's been saying, let's just let him play his way through it. So here you go. Now, Buffalo's not a great defensive team, but they're very situationally smart and well coached. They may sit some starters, but you can tell yourself there's no pressure. This team's got a Super Bowl level special teams and defense, and they've got a playoff winning head coach. That stuff you can't argue. It's quarterback. That's the missing piece here. So I am fascinated to watch it. I wish Buffalo would play all their starters. There's a lot of Mahomes is not playing. There's some belief that you won't see a ton of Josh Allen. Although again, I'm kind of a player dude. I think it's a rhythm thing. I want my guys. Aaron Rodgers always talks about this. A lot of being quarterback is, all right, you get to play. Book, you get the week's schemes. You want to get the players in the right spot for the play, and you want to get into a rhythm early. That was always a Peyton Manning thing. You start slow, you are slow. So get into a rhythm. I would like Mahomes and Josh Allen to stay in that rhythm, even if you don't have a bye. Just keep playing. Brady always played Week 17, stay in the bye. So I hope Buffalo plays everybody, because I think when you're young and talented, old teams I get time off. Young, talented, let them play. Just let them play. James Laurinaitis, who was a great linebacker at Ohio State, he was a great player. He's a Buckeye through and through, Big Ten Network. Analyst, he'll be joining us. I like Ohio State. I just bet on this morning. I think they're going to keep it really close with Clemson. I think it's a field goal game. I think it's low scoring. I think Ohio State's defensive line is going to push back heavily on Clemson's offensive line, and I think Trevor Lawrence is not going to have a ton of time to throw, and I don't think Ohio State's going to let Clemson run wild. I think it's very low-scoring, 26-23, very competitive, a little bit of an ugly game. Trevor Lawrence doesn't have a lot of time to throw, so we're going to bring him on next. The supplement I take every day is M-Drive, powerful ingredients backed by science, free shipping, 60-day money-back guarantee. Check it out, mdrivermen.com.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
You already know that The Challenge is the most heart-pounding competition show on television. But do you ever wonder how challenge competitors are selected or which challenges were too dangerous for TV? Well, you can learn all that and so much more on MTV's official Challenge podcast. Hosted by your girl Tori and me, Anissa, we're giving you the inside scoop on the brand new season of The Challenge. Let's go. Baby. Listen to MTV's official Challenge podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You're going to come into a new season of joy and fulfillment like you've never seen. Hi, I'm Joel Osteen. I have a daily podcast where I talk about overcoming obstacles, accomplishing dreams, and becoming all you were created to be. You were made for more. You have new levels in you. There are seeds of greatness waiting to spring forth. You can't think negative thoughts and live a positive life. And on my daily podcast, I'll help you get your mind going in the right direction. You may have had some disappointments in the past, but this is a new day. Chains that have held you back are being broken. Doors are going to open that you never dreamed would open. Now do your part. Keep feeding your hopes, feeding your dreams. Don't use your energy to feed your history. Use your energy to feed your destiny. It's inspiring, uplifting, and encouraging. I think you'll like it.
Listen to the Joel Osteen Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
He was a two-time Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, only player to ever win multiple Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year awards in the history of the conference. He's the only dude. James Laurinaitis, Big Ten Network analyst, played in the NFL for 8 years. Really an all-time, not only Buckeye, all-time great Big Ten football player. He is now joining us live. So I think Ohio State keeps it close, James. I think their defensive line is going to mostly overwhelm Clemson's fairly average pedestrian O-line. That's what I see. And whatever you see, people are going to say, well, he's a Buckeye. But when you look at film, when I watch Clemson, I don't think this is one of the more talented teams, although I think Trevor's just off the chain. say about that O-line, D-line, Buckeye-Clemson matchup?
Yeah, Colin, I think what's hard for me is the fact that both of these teams I don't think are as good as the matchup a year ago. I think both teams were better a year ago. What concerns me for Ohio State is that defensive line all year, they've been kind of doing it by committee, and Larry Johnson's a phenomenal defensive line coach. He's been great all year for them, but I just think when you look at that D-line, they don't have Chase Young. How does this defense stop Clemson? I know their O-line isn't what it was at Clemson, but you're losing guys like Damon Arnett, who's starting in the NFL, Jeff Okudah, who's starting in the NFL, Chase Young, who's making a great impact in the NFL. All three of those guys aren't on this defense for Ohio State. That's what concerns me from the Ohio State perspective.
You know, it's interesting. Last time they played, Ohio State played great early, had a call not go their way. It sort of unraveled. But if you go back to that game, when it was over, I didn't hear every comment from, the Ohio State side, but there was a lot of people I knew that were Buckeyes that said, we're a better team than they are. We absolutely believe they are. Do you believe in Buckeye land today, the feeling is similar that personnel-wise, we're a better team? Or do we know who Ohio State is?
Yeah, I don't think we do know. I think there's a lot of anxiety about this. This kind of feels almost like back when I was playing, and we were in 2006, we get beat by Florida, then in 07 you play LSU and you lose again, and then it's this whole thing, Ohio State can't beat the SEC. There's this feeling of, gosh, Clemson again. And if you don't win this year, there's kind of that feeling of, yeah, we've had great seasons, we've had great teams, but Clemson, we can't beat Clemson. And there is this giant monkey on their back about this team. So the team needs to be careful. You can almost over-focus, get paralysis by analysis, you can kind of overdo it. Only playing 6 games, Colin, I don't know how to really judge this team. If it was the last 6 games of the season and they were able to ramp up and kind of build toward this moment, maybe you feel a little better about it, but the stopping and starting, there's no rhythm, and they're behind on a lot of game situations and on a lot of reps.
Yeah. I think Notre Dame's going to be a little outclassed by Alabama, but I do think there is a potential that Alabama is looking ahead to Clemson or an Ohio State. I think Clemson may be looking ahead to Alabama. That's why I think Ohio State uglies it up and keeps it close. What would Notre Dame have to do? They're a 3-touchdown underdog. What would they have to do, James? To you could tell early in the game, this is working for Notre Dame.
Well, they're going to have to take the football away. You got to find ways to get more possessions for your offense. That defense has to play a certain way. And then I think Ian Book has to be able to scramble and use his legs. Whenever you look at Nick Saban's defenses over the years, they have struggled with mobile quarterbacks, quarterbacks that can beat you with their legs and kind of make stuff happen. That's how Ian Book, the first game against Clemson, was able to attack them and beat them. The second game, Clemson kept him bottled in the pocket. It was not nearly as effective. The one thing about Alabama, though, and you know this from covering them, they do not overlook anybody.
Yeah.
Alabama that's been the most impressive team. All these other schools, these big time schools around the country, they overlook teams. They get upset. Alabama just acts accordingly. They go out there, they handle business, and I actually think, at least maybe it's my part of the country being here in Ohio, that there's not enough respect for what the Crimson Tide have done this season and how impressive they've been.
It's interesting. Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence looks like he's next level. I saw him in high school, live in San Diego at a camp, and he just looks different. He's just bigger, the whip, everything's it's kind of natural and very fluid. Justin Fields is interesting. I've seen him play 3 times this year, 3 or 4, and a couple of them he has struggled with accuracy. He looks a little lost. Again, I try to think it's COVID. You're not practicing as much. I don't know what to take from it. When you watch him, what do you like? What concerns you about him?
Well, you're right. He started the season on fire. His completion percentage was through the roof. He was really playing impressive. And then it was the stop and starting again. And I think he fought so hard, Colin. If you remember, he's on Good Morning America trying to, fight for the Big Ten season to come back. He's doing all these interviews. He wanted a chance to come out and play, specifically to get a rematch against Clemson, a chance to get that last throwback where the miscommunication with him and Chris Olave happened in that game. But this year, whenever they've stopped and they've come back, the game against Indiana, he made some really uncharacteristic mistakes, forcing the ball when he's going down, just throwing it up in the air. He did the same thing against Northwestern. I just think whenever he came back from a pause, it was a, hold on, let me reintroduce myself to America and kind of force the issue. He's got to be very careful not to do that against Clemson tomorrow night, because all eyes will be on those two. They're both from Georgia, not too far away from one another. They're forever going to be linked. They've been linked through college. They'll be linked through the NFL. I think he had a really good start to the season, but he started the press as things kind of canceled and got out of rhythm.
I believe, and I've been told, we will go to an 8-team playoff, largely ignited, James, because of COVID and the budget shortfalls for even the schools like Texas and Ohio State. You can't just keep writing $10 million checks to do all this testing, and COVID's a part of our life here for at least the next 6 months and foreseeable future. I said this morning, there's 8 programs, I think. We think more teams will be more fairness. I think there's going to be 8 teams that are going to dominate it. And I put the 8 teams up in the order in which I think they will dominate it. Clemson doesn't lose assistants, and they have a weak conference. Bama's great, but does lose assistants. Ohio State's just a notch below. Oklahoma dominates their conference like the ACC. I just don't see a lot of roadblocks unless Texas gets their act together. Georgia's a recruiting power. So is Notre Dame, and I love Brian Kelly. Oregon dominates Denver West recruiting. They're really cleaning up in California. And I put Florida in there because they don't have to. Texas A&M would have to play Alabama. Florida just has to beat Georgia. So those are my 8. But it's interesting. Part of the 8 is I think those coaches, none are leaving. Most have long-term contracts. Ryan Day is interesting. I've heard NFL stuff with Ryan Day. And you can't keep hitting home runs. Tressel, Urban, Ryan Day. At some point, you hire the wrong guy. Do you believe Ryan Day is the Buckeye coach 3, 4, 5 years from now?
I think 3 or 4 years he is. You start going out to 5, and you have to wonder, what kind of lifestyle do you want to live? The difference in lifestyle between college and pro coach, at least in the NFL, you have some kind of break. In college, you are always recruiting.
Yeah.
That never ends. And, even with the early signing period now being mid-season, I mean, these guys were having their signing day during the Big Ten Championship week, trying to do game planning, and you're also trying to make sure every single recruit feels good on that day and makes it special for them. So it's tough. Do you want to keep living that lifestyle? Ryan Day is a really smart offensive play caller. I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him. But I like your list. I agree with your list. What baffles me is that when I was playing just back in 05 to 08, Colin, we had Texas. You would have never thought Texas would fall off with their resources, and I think they were obviously hoping and wanted Urban, and when Urban said no, he would have been a guy that for sure could have turned that thing around. And USC was dominance with Pete Carroll. So having those two teams not in the top 8, I think, just explains how far those programs have fallen.
Yeah, may not have the right coaches. Good stuff, James. Nice having you on the show for the first time. Admired your career. I love what you do, and you did a great job. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Anytime.
You bet. James Laurinaitis, one of the all-time great Buckeyes, and only 2-time Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten. We've talked about this lifestyle. So because of my childhood and background, I do like control, and in college football, I've thought about this more times than I can count. If I was a football coach, would I want to be NFL or college? And I know my history, and I've gone to enough therapy that I do like some control and semblance. I don't like chaos in my life, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to bore you. I've bored enough therapists. So I think the college I could control, whereas the NFL, you get a crazy owner, you get a GM. But the thing I do like, and tell me what you're like, is I do like breaks. Like in the summer, I had good summers as a kid. I grew up on a beach. I like taking 2 weeks off or a week off with my kids and I don't even watch my show. I don't read the sports page. You cannot do that in college. You're constantly sucking up to recruits. So I think I would be an NFL guy. Eventually I'd be more challenged. It's like the difference, Joy, between doing local and national.
Yeah.
This is more competitive, but you do get more breaks. You don't have to do sales calls constantly like Miami radio.
Yeah, no, it's a very different lifestyle. College is all year round. You get no breaks whatsoever.
It's going to homes all year round. It's literally getting on the phone.
Because recruiting is 24/7, really.
And telling 18-year-olds, I love you more than Nick Saban does.
It's not even just recruiting. You're also responsible for young men, like young humans that have just left their family's home. Like, it's a big responsibility. In the NFL, these are adults. These are grown men. They've got their own kids and mortgages. Like, you're still have to sleep with your ringer on, but like, it's not the same level of responsibility.
Also, in college, you got to suck up to boosters.
Yeah, you have one person you have to constantly answer to in the owner. Yeah.
You got 4 or 5 boosters.
Because the GM is kind of on the same, on the same level as you.
Yeah, I mean, most GMs and coaches, they'll go have a beer together and break down the draft.
It's a lot of schmoozing.
In college, it's very schmoozy. It's very...
I'm with you. I like to shut it down every once in a while. Work hard and then play hard.
Yeah, boom. Exactly. Hour 3 now. next.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
My name is Jamie Loftus, and I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works of all time, and our culture has done its protagonist a huge disservice over the years. I've spent the last few months getting to the bottom of how America turned this abused young girl into a sex symbol, and what that says about us. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Are you a music fan?
Do you need more music talk in your life?
Then you should be listening to Record Store Society, a music talk show podcast on the iHeartRadio network.
Record Store Society is a virtual trip to your local record store, hosted by me, Tara Davies.
And me, Seth Nicholas Johnson.
Every Friday, you'll find Seth and I behind the counter at your favorite record store, dispensing recommendations, making lists, and talking to our customers about anything and everything music-related.
So listen to Record Store Society on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ever wondered why there are two ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Become the most interesting person you know now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
Are you ready for best life minus the burnout? I'm Suri Hall from NBC's Access Hollywood, and my new podcast, Happy Mess, is all about the most important VIP, you. You're the star of your life, so own it. And join us each Monday as we discuss relationships, self-care, career, and much more. Our podcast is for mindful, ambitious, diverse millennial women who are ready for more happiness, laughter, peace, and purpose now. Listen to Hot Happy Mess every week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go, Hour 3. We're live in LA. It's the Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, FS1. Joey and I have great conversations off the air, sometimes about America that drives us nuts. But we were just talking about the smartest, wealthiest people in Los Angeles are buying the vaccine now that people won't take it. It's available. They put it back in the system. The smartest, most successful, wealthiest, brightest people in LA are now buying the vaccine. They're literally healthcare workers in America that won't take it.
Yeah, there's a story, I think it's in the LA Times today, that healthcare workers are not.
Rupert Murdoch took it in the UK 10 days ago. He's pretty well connected. I know you have some Illuminati connections on Twitter, but the smartest people are taking it.
I don't know. I give up with talking to people about the vaccine.
I'm saying
about it every day. It's exhausting my soul. I'm like, okay, you're not going to take it. What is the plan? What's the plan? You don't want to wear masks. You don't want to take a vaccine. You want everything to be open and everything to go back to normal.
The smartest, most successful, wealthiest people in
the world, not just in America. This is a global pandemic. It's not just America. It is not just in the United States of America.
They're
it is
buying
all
it.
over the world. People have to take this vaccine. It's
Our
not a
boss,
conspiracy against you.
Rupert Murdoch took it in the UK. Pretty smart, pretty connected. To like global leaders.
Yes, all global leaders are taking it.
But Bob, he's got this connection on Twitter who told
Frank
him.
and Jody think it's not a good idea.
On Reddit.
So, you saw it on a meme.
On Reddit.
With no
message board.
I just can't. Do what you want.
Listen, if the thing was on my desk, I'd take it right now in front of you.
I would put it in my forehead.
Right on the air. I just go, and I'd take it. I'd be all fine.
Immediately.
2 seconds. I haven't even pursued it yet. I'm going to go out.
Yeah.
For the show today, start pursuing.
You know, look into it. Well, I mean, I don't know.
Bucky Brooks in 15 minutes. That's the voice of Joy Taylor on radio. You know, best for last. This is the last day of 2020. What were the best performances of 2020? The best athletes, individual athletes for 2020. We'll talk about that. But Tom Brady once again finds himself in the postseason. Not a big shock. Buccaneers head coach Bruce Arians talked about the team's upcoming playoff push.
The Super Bowl or bust. That's the goal every year. And you can't get to the Super Bowl if you don't get in the playoffs. You know, so getting into the playoffs was huge for us. And years, a lot of football left, and we're really excited to be playing.
I disagree. I don't think it's Super Bowl or bust. Let me take you back to Peyton Manning goes to the Denver Broncos. Now, like Brady, he's kind of a free agent. He chose the best team. Denver was good. They'd made the playoffs the year before. Peyton Manning was just 36. He goes to a much more respectable franchise. Denver has always been very well run. Can't find the next Elway, but very run. He has very good stats. See if these sound familiar. 37 touchdowns, 11 picks, a 105 passer rating. Turned an 8-8 team respectable to 13-3. He lost in the playoffs. His first playoff game lost. And the feeling was, all right, it was a success. They'd gone to the playoffs with Tebow. But the sense was Peyton Manning was great in Denver. Tom Brady, like Peyton, chooses the best fit for him, Tampa. He's 7 years older. Now think about that. LeBron had his 36th birthday yesterday. Do you think I'm going to judge LeBron at 43, same as I am today at 36? 7 years for pro athletes, I don't know, seems significant. Tom delivers great stats. See if these sound familiar. 36 touchdowns, 11 picks, passer rating over 100. He turns around a losing, dysfunctional franchise, 7-9 to probably this weekend 11-5. And if he loses, he will be crushed. So Brady is much older, turns around a much more dysfunctional franchise. Peyton Manning and Denver went 13-3. The division, the rest of the division Peyton Manning faced that year, won 13 games total. Tom Brady goes to a division with a preseason Super Bowl favorite, New Orleans, Hall of Fame coach and quarterback, and Matt Ryan, by the way, is going to get Hall of Fame votes too. He's a former MVP. If Tom Brady loses in the first round of the playoffs, why isn't he successful? By the way, did Peyton Manning face a pandemic? Peyton Manning got OTAs. Peyton Manning got a preseason. Peyton Manning played in a weaker AFC. Peyton Manning played in a weaker division. Peyton Manning seven years younger. It was seen as a success. Tom Brady's 43, worse franchise, harder division, harder conference, better quarterbacks in his division. And by the way, year 2 always feels easier. LeBron won a championship in year 2 in Miami, then year 2 in Cleveland, and year 2 in Los Angeles. Peyton Manning, year 2, got to the Super Bowl. We all sort of understand year 1, moving your entire family, offense, coach, system, teammates is tough. I mean, hell, Aaron Rodgers struggled last year, and he didn't have to move or play with new guys. He just got a new coach. Look at the leap Aaron's made. Year 1, Matt LaFleur. Year 2. Just saying, if Tom loses, didn't he do exactly what we thought? Take a dysfunctional franchise and turn them into winners in the playoffs? Of course he's not going to win the division. Peyton Manning didn't have the Saints roster and Drew Brees and Sean Payton in that division. To me, it's not a Super Bowl or bust. Tom's done everything I've asked in year 1. This is absolutely, I predicted a wild card and a win. But if he loses, let's not go crazy. Peyton did, and we still saw it overwhelmingly as a success. It's interesting on the marketing. Peyton's one of us. Tom's supermodel, aspirational Uggs, expensive watches. He's out there. We're still trying to discredit Tom Brady. Brady's team that he left is now a train wreck, New England. Peyton's team that he left, the Colts, won 11 games. Just saying. So Troy Aikman must be a much better sleeper than I am. I am not a great sleeper. I am a 4 or 5 hours, and then it's just, staring at the ceiling. So Troy Aikman is talking about when Dak comes back, the Cowboys have to, they're going to give Dak a new contract. Now, as you well know if you've listened to this show, everybody in Dallas kept coming on the show and guaranteeing me Dak would get a long-term deal. And I kept saying, well, they're paying everybody else. Why won't they pay Dak? They didn't. They gave him a franchise tag. And so Troy Aikman says, don't worry about Dak. Don't worry about Dak. He's going to get his money, and if he does, I feel great. Here's Troy.
I wouldn't hesitate at all. Prescott locked up with a big contract and not be worrying about his commitment to the team and commitment to winning.
And that's interesting. Commitment to the team and commitment to winning. Isn't that kind of the base of what I expect, the old Chris Rock joke? I love my kids. Yeah, that's the minimum as a parent. I think every top quarterback in the league, including Dak and Andy Dalton, even Baker Mayfield, who I'm critical of, I think they're committed to winning and committed to teammates. Some guys have egos, some guys are goofy, some guys aren't as responsible, Drew Lock. But I think they're all kind of committed. Base level to winning and their teammates. I think most quarterbacks are, they've grown up. They know the value of quarterbacking, the importance of it. But I'm just going to play a little what if. If Dallas beats the Giants Sunday, and it's going to be close. It's a 24-23 game. Giants are probably the better bet, but, Dallas, let's say they win. And Washington with a third-string quarterback loses. Dallas is in the playoffs. And Andy Dalton will have gone 5-2 since the bye. And as we talked about yesterday, it's not really fair to judge Andy Dalton. No preseason, inheriting a new coach and a new system and a new team, concussion, COVID. Let's start at the bye with Andy. In fact, let's start at the bye with the Cowboys. They're a different team. If he wins Sunday, he goes 5-2 in his last 7 games, and as I showed you yesterday, the numbers with Dak are virtually the same. And he will want $38 million. That's more than Aaron Rodgers. That's more than Russell Wilson. That's more than Tom Brady. It's almost more than anybody not named Patrick Mahomes. Does that seem like a good business decision? Let me ask you this. If you think Dak is a good quarterback, I do. Good. Not special, not great. Let's go to the last 5 good quarterbacks who got big contracts. Jimmy G, Jared Goff, Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, Matt Stafford, I'll even throw in Carson Wentz. Are any of those teams happy with a contract? I'm going to go big fat NO on that. None of them are. None of them are happy. And I'm not even going to throw the what-ifs out. Oh, yes, I am. What if Andy Dalton beats the Eagles just did and the Giants down the stretch? And the offense looks good, certainly did against Philadelphia. And what if it does Sunday? When Dak last year couldn't generate a touchdown against an injury-ravaged Eagles team, if Dalton wins Sunday and they look decent offensively, he generates all sorts of touchdowns and beats both of his rivals. Dak couldn't beat one and generate a touchdown against a Philadelphia team that was throwing at lawn furniture. I'm just saying, heaven forbids Dalton wins a playoff game. I won't even go there. So again, it's not anti-Dak, but at the end of this weekend, and it'll be close, it'll come down to the last couple of minutes of the game. If Andy Dalton wins and goes 5-2 down the stretch and has the exact same numbers as Dak, and Dak's wanting $37-38 million off an ugly injury, man, Troy's a better sleeper than I am, because I would struggle with it. Because I see the Jimmy G contract and the Wentz contract and the Stafford contract and the Goff contract and the Matt Ryan contract. I don't think any of those teams like that contract today. We'll see. That's why football is great. It's why the Giants-Dallas is 2 losing records. They're not even close. These are right now 5-6 win teams. That's one of the most intriguing NFL games of the weekend. It is fascinating. Word is if the Giants don't win, they may clean house in their front office with Gettleman. I read a story about that this morning. So there's a lot on the line. It's not that I'm rooting for Andy Dalton, but folks, if he goes 5-2 and gets to the playoffs, I'm just saying, and beats both the Eagles and the Giants down the stretch, Dak couldn't even generate a touchdown against Philadelphia. Want 38? They may franchise again. That's a lot of lettuce. That is a lot of lettuce. Bucky Brooks played, scouted in the NFL. He likes Dak. We'll talk that more. Big weekend in the NFL. Some guys playing, some guys Mahomes not. Would you sit out Patrick Mahomes, who has struggled a little in December? I wouldn't. I'd play him in Week 17. Thoughts on that with Bucky next. Go the extra mile in your upfitted own Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van. Go to foxsportsradio.com. The contest is called the Fox Sports Radio's Ultimate Tailgate Rig Sweepstakes. Enter official rules. Go to the website. January 24th is the deadline. Mercedes-Benz vans.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeart Radio app.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from E-Trade. Trading isn't for everyone, but E-Trade is. Whether it's saving for a rainy day or your retirement, E-Trade has you covered. They can help you check your financial goals off your list, and with a team of professionals giving you support when you need it, you can be confident that your money is working hard for you. Get more than just trading with E-Trade. To get started today, visit etrade.com/iHeart for more information. E-Trade Securities LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Support for this podcast and the following message come from E-Trade. You want to invest your money, but there's one problem. You're not sure where to begin. Luckily, there's E-Trade, who offers more than just trading. E-Trade simplifies investing without the financial jargon and has the people to offer guidance and support to make your money work hard for you. For more information, visit etrade.com/iHeart. E-Trade Securities LLC, member FINRA SIPC.
Fox Super 6 has been Download the free Fox Super 6 app and make your picks for your shots to win. All you have to do is correctly predict the outcome of 6 NFL games. And for top stories, scores, and more, get the Fox Sports app. Bucks Falcons is featured in Sunday's contest. Colin, give us your winner and final score.
Bucks by a touchdown, 34-27. It's weird though. They were so dominant over Atlanta in the second half of their game. Now you've got to convince the Tampa players. They've already made the playoffs that you got to play great and you're going to be threatened. And that's where the NFL and college are so different. Like if you're better in college, you win the game. Clemson could play Boston College 10 times. But in the NFL, Tampa Bay is better than Atlanta, but you just thrashed them for an hour and a half in the second half, and you got to convince those players this is a real threat, and you march up and down the field. And then now Atlanta players are playing, they want that game on tape, so they don't want to be humiliated again, and they kind of know Tampa's offense, so Tampa's better. But this is why the NFL is crazy. You could see Atlanta shocking them. It's just very hard when you have a competent quarterback, Matt Ryan, to beat Matt Ryan twice in 3 weeks. And Atlanta's offense
Morris wants that job. Yeah, there's a lot.
They're playing for
factors there.
They're playing for jobs. So that's the difference. Bucky Brooks played in the NFL, drafted second round, also a great scout. Now at the NFL Network and Fox, he's joining us live. Let me ask you. You know, this is crazy. So this is what, if you were, I imagine at one point, you probably wanted to be an NFL GM, or if somebody offered it to you, it's a pretty good job, right? You scouted and stuff. So Miami, I'm going to throw a theory at you, just throw it out there. Miami, Brian Flores is really good. They'll never have the number 3 pick again, likely if he's the head coach. And we see the ease in which Herbert and Burrow have been asked to carry bad teams and often have. Whereas Miami's got a great coach, excellent special teams, a playoff-winning defense. We don't know what they are at quarterback. If Tua comes out against Buffalo and looks, Greg Cosell told us earlier, kind of simple packages, doesn't go over the top, doesn't look special, is it the craziest thing in the world that Brian Flores goes, I'm going to roll the dice on one of these college guys. Fitzpatrick's not around long. I mean, you tell me if Tua is just flat, do you have to think about that in the offseason?
Well, I mean, I think you have to think about it anyway. When you're right now, they have the number 3 overall pick. I think you have to always think about how can I best position my team to win a championship. And so, look, we haven't seen teams go back-to-back in the top 5 since Troy Aikman and Steve Walsh when the Cowboys did it in 89 and 90. It's uncommon to do that, but I think what you want to do, this is a golden ticket for the Miami Dolphins. They have an opportunity to get a star and add a star to a team that is already potentially a playoff team. And so I think you have to examine it. I will say this, though, because I do believe we're being a little harsh in our criticism and critiques on Tua Tagovailoa. Tua Tagovailoa has 10 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. It's the second best rookie touchdown to interception ratio since Dak Prescott. He is one of only 4 quarterbacks with a 750 win percentage and an interception percentage under 2. Tom Brady, Pat Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson are the only other quarterbacks that have done that. So before we beat him up, at the end of the day, the quarterback's job is to win games.
Yeah.
And he has won the games that he's been in. And I know there's a fascination with Ryan Fitzpatrick and what he's done, category, and that is not turning the ball over. That's why the Miami Dolphins have been able to win with him, even though you got to consider other quarterbacks.
Yeah. So Patrick Mahomes is going to take Week 17 off, and it's interesting. The last 4 quarterbacks to take Week 17 off and have a bye and have that 20 days off, 3 of 4 have lost. Big Ben against the Jags, Lamar MVP, and the 15-1 Aaron Rodgers team. The one quarterback that won, Drew Brees, threw a pick his first throw of the game, so he was rusty in the first quarter. You know, Mahomes did not play great against Atlanta. He was off. Now 20 days. I'm not sure. I mean, I think quarterbacking to some degree, Bucky, is rhythm. Doesn't that seem like a little bit of a risk not playing him?
It does seem like a long time, but I will say this. I think if you're Andy Reid, and Andy Reid has a track record of being extremely successful off of bye weeks, I think you would rather have all of your weapons available to you in the postseason rather than run the risk of losing Patrick Mahomes on a freak injury. And so I think you would deal with a little bit of the rust, knowing that your offense is so explosive that when they do figure it out, we have seen them run off 20. 30 straight points without giving up points. So I think it's all about trying to find a way to make sure that Pat Mahomes feels great, that all of the weapons on the outside are healthy and ready to go. So when you do hit the ground running, you hit it going full speed. And the Kansas City Chiefs, when they are at their best, it is hard to deal with them when that offense is rolling. I think Andy Reid wants to make sure that the offense is flowing when they get back into the tournament.
Most of the teams that hand big contracts to good quarterbacks, Rams Goff, Stafford Detroit, Jimmy G Niners, Kirk Cousins, Minnesota. I think most of those teams today don't love those quarterbacks. They don't love those contracts. And, you know, I want to talk about Trubisky. Trubisky wins games. Bucky, he wins 68% of his games. And you're going to have to make a decision here. You know, he and Matt Nagy, this will be the second time in 3 years if they win Sunday, they're in the playoffs. What do you do? What do you do with a Trubisky? It feels like it's that NFL Kirk Cousins quicksand. Like, what do you do?
I think the toughest thing to do is to separate winning from the performance of the quarterback and what the quarterback is actually doing. And I know we talked about winning being important with Tua Tagovailoa. The thing with Mitchell Trubisky is now what you potentially run the risk of is hamstringing your franchise by giving him a contract that isn't commensurate with his level of play and performance. We saw this happen in Jacksonville, and when that happened with Blake Bortles, it upset the apple cart in the locker room. Because it's not only that Mitchell Trubisky is occupying that amount of salary cap space, it's the fact that Khalil Mack and others are sitting in the locker room and looking at a guy who may be making $30 to $35 million, and they know he's not that kind of player. And so I think the Bears need to evaluate Mitchell Trubisky for as he is, and they need to also not bid against themselves. Because if Mitchell Trubisky hits the open market, who is going to pay him big money? I would say no one. And so they need to make sure that they give him a contract, if it is a multiple-year contract, that is at the value of what he is and not at market value. This needs to be a team-friendly deal because I don't think he really has many options on the open market.
But let me make the argument that Dalton, if he wins Sunday in the last 7 games, is 5-2. He's not as good as Dak. But the gap, I don't believe, is as gigantic as people say. On the open market, are there multiple bidders for Dak, do you think? Because the Cowboys are going to have to pay him $36 large.
Yeah, but I think Dak is a much better player. And I think if you look at Dak with the Cowboys in that offense was a top 5 offense with Dak Prescott. They have not been a top 5 offense with Andy Dalton. And now they've beaten up on some cupcakes of late, and Andy Dalton has shown flashes, but he's not nearly the player of Dak Prescott because some of the things that they were to do early in the season when it wasn't right, they haven't been able to do it when it's been right with the defense playing well and the offensive line coming together. Andy Dalton is a solid pro, but Andy Dalton isn't what I would call a top 5, top 7 quarterback, which is where you need to consider Dak Prescott.
Okay, I'm going to throw this story at you. So Mike Tannenbaum used to be a general manager in the league. He said Carson Wentz should consider paying the Eagles $20 million to facilitate a trade. Now, let me explain it to the audience. Right now, they're on the hook for like $33.5 million in Philadelphia for Carson Wentz. But if he wrote a check for $20 million before the end of the 2020 league year, the Eagles get credit for that. It'd only be a $13 million cap hit. He becomes very tradable. The Colts signing bonus, and it would be fine. And I thought about this morning. There are times it's worth paying to get out of a business, relationships, momentum of the business, and I do feel like the minute they drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round, and then they benched Wentz, it's one of those things you can forgive but not forget, and I think it does kind of, there's irreparable damage perhaps to Wentz and Philly, an unforgiving town. Just tell me your thoughts about if you were Carson Wentz's agent. It's just, hey, here's $20 million, I'm going to the Colts. I don't think it's nuts. Your thoughts?
No, I don't think it's necessarily nuts, but I think before Carson Wentz can come to that, I think he has to have an honest conversation with himself in terms of how he performed. He didn't really perform well. Jalen Hurts has stepped in with the same pieces, and the offense has looked different. Now, he may have too many voices in his ear, and they may have failed him when it comes to coaching and surrounding him with the right things, but Carson Wentz hasn't performed well. And so if he does believe that going to Indianapolis will reunite him with Frank Reich and bring out the best in him, yes, you can do it. But I do believe before Carson Wentz can become the player that we saw in 2017, he has to be very, very honest with himself and figure out what is wrong, how he can get better, and would it be better to try and improve my game under the tutelage of Frank Reich, who was that offensive coordinator when he played at his best.
Finally, I've never seen a college quarterback prospect as inaccurate as Josh Allen and as inaccurate as a rookie and inaccurate his second year. In his third year, he's literally an MVP level player. You're a former scout. Are you at least a little shocked this massive jump in accuracy in the last 20 games?
I am absolutely shocked by his progression, but I think what it has done, Colin, I think Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have changed the way that scouts have to look at quarterbacks. Instead of nitpicking and talking about what quarterbacks can't do, we really need to hone in on their strengths and really imagine what they can do. What the Buffalo Bills have been able to do is to take Josh Allen and to imagine what he could be at his ceiling and put all the pieces around him to enable him to reach that ceiling. And Dayball being a creative offensive play caller, surrounding him with talent on the perimeter and Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley. And then we have to give a lot of credit to Josh Allen. Josh Allen has done the work. And at a time where we're talking about quarterbacks and do you like it or do you love it, Josh Allen has shown to the football world he loves it by the way that he has worked on his game. Hats off to him, standing ovation for him for being what many of us couldn't see. He has been terrific, and the Buffalo Bills have, look, they deserve credit for sticking with him and really putting him in a situation where he can succeed.
Yeah. I've just never seen anything like it. He was completely, utterly inaccurate 20 games ago. Like 56% inaccurate, and now he's just throwing dimes everywhere. Stephon Diggs doesn't hurt, by the way. Bucky Brooks, happy holidays. Happy New Year to you, Bucky, you and the fam.
Hey, thanks so much, man.
Go the extra mile, your own upfitted Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van. Go to foxsportsradio.com. They've got the Super Ultimate Tailgate Rig Sweepstakes. January 24th, last day you can apply for it. Mercedes-Benz vans. Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Well, close debate between Michael Jordan and LeBron could get closer as LeBron finishes out his career. Shaq explains what he thinks the gap is between the two right now and how LeBron can catch up to Jordan.
I know LeBron, and I know he thinks about what people think. He already passed up Kobe and Jordan points. Now once he gets 5 championships, now he'll be closer to the goal. But as he gets 5, he's going to be creeping on Kareem too. I think he's looking to pass Kareem to get to 39,000, and then that'll automatically put him as the best player. And then if he ties Mike, I think people will probably lean a little bit more towards him.
That's what happened with Brady, is that Montana was 4 for 4, perfect. Right. When Brady hit 5, you could no longer argue it. So if LeBron gets 6, and you say, yeah, but he's also been to 9 more, he's not perfect.
Yeah, I think the perfect thing is if he can get to 5 and he passes Kareem, I'm with Shaq. It's going to be a much tougher argument. It's going to become a preference argument at that point. Now I know some people already feel our friend Nick Wright very adamantly feels that Michael's already been passed as the greatest of all time, but LeBron is third on the all-time scoring list, 34,358 points. Kareem is first, 38,387 points. He's averaging, LeBron, 2,014 points a year. So, if you can put all that math together, if he continues to play, at least at the level he's playing now, for, say, 2 more years, he will pass Kareem on the all-time scoring list.
Yeah, well, statistically, he blows by Michael and everything.
Right, but that is a milestone.
Right.
Like, that's a jewel in the crown that is very tough to argue with, because he's already passed Michael in the all-time scoring list, but to pass Kareem, who is considered the greatest scorer of all time, and he has the record, that is a big deal. On top of winning with 3 different organizations, possibly winning another one this year, the overwhelming favorites.
I think the one thing that the Michael Jordan people struggle with, Michael could never win at a second place. LeBron's now won in 3 places, including Cleveland, which is not an ideal place. Now you could say, well, he went to LA, the Lakers. The Lakers were horrible when he got there. So,
yes, the Lakers, it's not like he walked into
it was
that's Doug mentioned it earlier. The first year of LeBron's career with the Lakers was pretty much a disaster. Not on LeBron, but it was. We think of the Lakers as a very well-run organization, but they weren't.
They had ownership issues, front office issues, roster issues, and also when he went to Cleveland. People forget this. Kyrie was deemed kind of a bust. He didn't get along with teammates. He wasn't a winning player. He got hurt at Duke. He'd been hurt in Cleveland. He couldn't stay healthy. People look at Kyrie now, but pre-LeBron, a lot of people. I remember I was doing a radio show at another network and talking to somebody there, and I'm like, he's a bust. Nobody likes him. He's never healthy. He never plays.
And what is Cleveland since?
A disaster. So it's like, that's the one thing. LeBron's a better teammate that works more effortlessly with more people, with more coaches. LeBron's worked with every coach. Michael worked a little with Doug Collins and a lot with Phil.
It's also a nostalgia thing with
that's
Michael.
Huge. People just love...
Like, I love Michael, so it's going to be difficult. I will admit it if it becomes too obvious, because I'm not a crazy person. Well, I am a crazy person, but I can't be out here sounding ridiculous and unsound, but it's going to be a hard nostalgia thing to let go of. That's
we let go of Joe Montana really quick. He didn't
have
shoe commercials.
We did, but also that... That Super win over Atlanta was so spectacular, that comeback, that it was also like, it was just an immediate transition. We're like, okay, we can admit this now. So Oklahoma dominated Florida 55-20.
Watched it,
in the
yeah.
Cotton Bowl. Spencer Rattler threw for 247 yards and 4 total touchdowns.
Dominated the SEC defense.
The Sooners also had 435 rushing yards. Heisman hopeful Kyle Trask struggled for the Gators. He threw a season-low 158 yards and a season-high 3 interceptions.
By the way, everybody in the SEC loves to brag about their defense. Oklahoma did whatever they wanted to, and it was, they were missing a lot of receivers, Florida, but these SEC defenses, they're not what they used to be. This year, South Carolina's was garbage, Florida's is right now. I mean, that game was a complete 8-minute in mismatch.
It was also his first game without a touchdown pass this year.
Kyle Trask is not athletic. He is literally Phillip Rivers. Like, he is that unathletic. So, like, he's just a big arm guy. And, I mean, somebody will draft him. But of all the prospects, he looks least like a 2020 quarterback.
To me, that game was all about Spencer. I'm big on Spencer Rattler. I think he is going to be a star.
Yeah.
And that was a game that...
He looked great.
Did not make me look like a liar.
He looked great.
I know you guys were all in my mentions earlier in the year telling me how terrible he was getting mentioned in that game. Well, I didn't notice anyone yesterday. It must have been that outage that happened to Pittsburgh.
Well, he's only like 19 years old.
Yes, he's like years to go.
Yeah, he's like a kid.
Years to go. Finally, I watched this probably 40 times. It's such an amazing video. So if you haven't seen this, Wisconsin beat Wake Forest 42-28 in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. The team was celebrating in their locker room, as they should be, but things took a turn very quickly. Let's see the video. It's so amazing. I'm sorry for everyone on radio, but Graham Mertz, the quarterback, dropped the trophy.
Crystal,
yes,
broke.
And it broke immediately. And you can hear the whole locker room just kind of freeze for a second. It's so good. He made up for it, though, somewhat. He found a bottle of Duke's Mayo, and he taped it to the top of the trophy. It's so good. It is. I mean, the kids' reaction is perfect. That's how everyone reacts when you break something that you know you cannot replace.
Don't throw a ball in the house.
Oh, my God. It's so good. But congrats to Wisconsin.
Badgers win a lot of bowl games. That's a really good athletic program. Wisconsin wins a lot of big games and a lot of bowl games. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Our 2020 last day of the year, kind of our best athletes of the year. They had the best years of 2020. That's coming up next. Go the extra mile. FoxSportsRadio.com and your very own upfitted Mercedes-Benz van. January 24th is the deadline. You can win the van. It's got TVs. It's got swivel chairs. It's got 2-wood pellet grills. It's got an awning. It's got a light music show. It's amazing. Mercedes-Benz vans.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
It's been 30 years since the first episode of Beverly Hills 90210. 30 years since we walked the halls of West Beverly High, and since we all hung out at the Beach Fit. Relive it all with Jenny Garth and Tori Spelling on their new podcast, 90210 OMG. We get to tell the fans all of the behind-the-scenes stories that actually happened. Join them as they rewatch every episode of the beloved 90s TV show from the very beginning. Listen to 90210 OMG on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
My name is Jamie Loftus, host of shows like My Year in Mensa and The Bechtelcast. I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works in American history. The story and its main character have been adapted, misinterpreted, and twisted over the years by Hollywood, by fashion, by fans of the book, and by the author himself. Lolita has gone from the tragic story of an abused 13-year-old girl to a cultural narrative that frames her as the seductress and to blame. So how did this all happen? It's a messy story. This is a story about a girl named Dolores, and I think she's gotten lost over the years. I'll be speaking with literary scholars, with experts on abuse, and with the actors who have played the part of Lolita and more. So let's get to the bottom of it, for her. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Good to have you in. Today is New Year's Eve. Colin Cowherd, yeah.
We made it.
I thought I'd say, these are not necessarily the 10 best athletes, but I thought they were the athletes that had the best year.
Okay.
They overcame things. It heightened their talent. They had the best year in sports. So let's go number 10.
Number 10.
I would say Joe Burrow. So first of all, he's the first quarterback since Cam Newton to win a national championship, win the Heisman, and then get drafted number 1. And then he goes to the NFL and had 5 300-yard passing games before he tore his ACL and MCL. He's going to break Andrew Luck's record. So it's kind of a storybook season. And he had a really interesting journey like Cam. Cam went to a junior college, went to Florida, transferred to Auburn. Burrow went to Ohio State, transferred, sat for a while. It's a really good year for Joe Burrow, number 10.
Number 9.
I would say Josh Allen. The leap, he had 8 games with 300+ passing yards this year. He didn't have a single game passing for 300 yards in his first 2 years in the league. It's a city that loves its football. I cannot really compare him to anybody else but maybe Troy Aikman, where you're watching the first year and nothing works. You're watching the end of the second year and you're like, wow, but the third year, you're like, is he the best or second best quarterback in the NFL? Josh Allen, number 9.
Number 8.
How about Dustin Johnson? First of all, he won the Masters. He was 20 under par. That was a Masters record. He's named the PGA Tour Player of the Year, and there's a lot of really good young sticks in golf. He's now the best player in the world. Number 1 player in the official world golf rankings. Number 1 on the PGA money list last year at $3 million. So I think for him, right now in a crowded field of tremendously gifted young golfers, you the man.
Number 7.
How about Michael Jordan? Wasn't bad for his shoe sales, I'll tell you that. The Last Dance documentary, it won an Emmy for Outstanding Documentary, and it was great. Very pro-Michael, but that's okay. It was the most viewed ESPN documentary. forever. It averaged about 6 million people. And to be honest with you, it spiked his shoe sales. Just about when we're ready to anoint LeBron James, the greatest this and that, Michael calculatedly moves in with The Last Dance, which saved Joy and I's took us, gave us 8-10 weeks of great rants and thoughts, and it was a marvelous documentary that it really made me love Michael all over again.
Number 6.
How about Anthony Davis? He was brittle, he wasn't a leader. He goes into the finals, and he's only the 8th player in basketball history to win an NCAA championship, an Olympic gold, and an NBA title. He and LeBron from day one. They even work better than Wade and LeBron. They just work day one. Their games fit perfectly. Their personalities do. And he was a dominating playoff performer. 28 a game, 10 rebounds, good passing, 3.5 assists, 1.5 blocks. And it really was. There were many nights you felt like it was Anthony's team. He was an unstoppable force and a more consistently great defensive player than LeBron. Anthony Davis at
Number 5.
How about the resurrection of Jimmy Butler? Head case, diva, hard to get along with. He's only the second player to go to the finals, lead his team in everything. Points, assists, blocks, steals, rebounds. The only other guy to do that, like 4 years ago, was LeBron James. One of the great finals ever. He just got exhausted.
Yeah.
I mean, by the end of the finals, he was just tired of taking all those kids in the backseat of the van. It's like, kids, get out of here. I'm exhausted. But he reached the NBA Finals in his first season with the Heat. It was a really risky move where he left a much more talented Philadelphia team. He had a bad reputation. I had said, a little difficult. Not sure if I'd have made the move if I'm Miami. He became a leader, totally resurrected his entire brand. He is a go-to force in the league.
Number 4.
Tom Brady won the divorce, and that matters. That has been a 15-year-old question. Is it Brady or is it Belichick? Well, the Patriots stink and can't move the ball, and Brady's going to the playoffs again. He also signed a 2-year, $50 million contract, so it's not bad there. And as he said a couple of weeks ago, I'm never going back up to the Northeast. He loves the jet skis and the water and the temperature. Listen, old people move to Florida. It's easier on the bone. And it took him a while, and it's been a bumpy ride, but he is having a remarkable, not a Matt Ryan year like we predicted, more like an Aaron Rodgers year with Tampa Bay.
Number 3.
Here for Mookie Betts. The first or second best baseball player. He won with the Red Sox. They could no longer afford him, so they made a big trade to the Dodgers. He was exactly the juice and the energy a very good franchise needed that could not get over the hump. He was unbelievable in the Atlanta series. He won that. He was good with the glove. He had power. He hit for average. By the way, he signed a 12-year, $560 million contract, so he'll be driving a nice car to Dodger Stadium. He really is an old-school baseball player. He's an athlete that could have played multiple sports, and he won games everywhere, on the bases, at the plate, in the field. He and Mike Trout feel like they're just a different level than everybody else in the sport.
Number 2.
Patrick Mahomes had a pretty good year, not going to lie. First Super Bowl for the Kansas City Chiefs since 1970, Super Bowl MVP. As a college player, didn't know much about him, and he came from behind. I thought this was great. He came from behind in every playoff game by at least 10 points. He had struggled in the Super Bowl, then he made that huge throw. And it was also good because the love between him and Andy Reid, one of the most respected guys. Andy Reid for years has been a great coach, couldn't get over the top. And it looks like the kind of relationship. I mean, you can really see it. It's like a Staubach Landry. Like, you just know they like each other, they respect each other, they fit with each other. The thing could last for 12 years.
Number 1.
All right, LeBron. 4th title, 4th Finals MVP. MVP, only MJ's got more. Let's be honest about it. He moved to Los Angeles. They were a wreck. The ownership, the brother and the sister didn't get along, the Magic situation, Rob Pelinka, the tragedy of Kobe, David Stern passed away, a pandemic, they played in a bubble, and it unraveled every single veteran team in the bubble. Milwaukee's an old team struggled, Toronto wasn't right, Boston wasn't right, the Clippers unraveled. The one veteran team, because the bubble was great for kids. They didn't have families at home. They loved the bubble. It's like the veteran team that literally got better was LeBron James, and he made kind of a quirky, weird, old roster with a lot of disparate parts. JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard, Rondo. That's not going to work, is it? By the end of the year, they were easily the best team in the NBA. Even the shirtless J.R. Smith. It just all felt right for LeBron James. Our 10 athletes, not necessarily the 10 best athletes, the 10 athletes who had the best year. You know what I loved about Mookie Betts is that when I was a kid, the best athletes often played football or baseball or basketball. And then there's been this long 20-year thing where a lot of kids don't play baseball. The best athletes, it looks like they play basketball and football. Mookie Betts brought just juice. He reminded me of a 1975 baseball player. He'd get on the base, Joe Morgan. He could run, he could glove it, he could hit it, he could hit for power.
He's great. He's athletic. He has personality. They encourage his personality.
Yes.
And accept it.
Baseball, for the record, did a much better job this year.
Yes.
Even their marketing was loosen up, let the kids play. So LeBron, Mahomes, Mookie, Brady, Butler, Anthony, Michael, Dustin, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow.
2020 had its moments for sure.
Oh, absolutely. It is.
And really, even the Dodgers winning after 50 years.
I thought it was great. In fact, I was talking about this the other day because it always takes me a while to get into the NBA season. I watched about 45 minutes with a buddy last night of the Clippers game. It's hard for me in December, January to get into the NBA. But I was talking to a friend. I'm just like, I'm really interested in the Dodgers. It's in my lifetime, I'm not sure there's ever been a batting order that good. Everybody can hit. It's all 280, 300, 310 hitters. It's they're about one more pitcher away. They're a closer away from being one of the best teams maybe of all time. The Dodgers are a closer away. They're really I'm in Los Angeles, so they're on TV. They're genuinely a 70s baseball team. It's fun to watch. Everybody can jack it. It's just everybody power, everybody average, big personalities, young, fun.
LA had a great year.
Oh, my God. Well, if it had been the 10 best cities, it would have been LA 10. For Joy and everybody here today, happy New Year's Eve. Please be safe tonight. Be smart. We'll see you tomorrow. It's The Herd.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
Friends, Dancing with the Stars partners, and now podcast hosts. Backstreet Boys AJ McLean and Cheryl Burke bring you Pretty Messed Up.
This show talks about pretty much anything, everything, love, life, drugs, sex, rock and roll, you name it.
Pretty Messed Up doesn't hold back. It's a hot mess with the guidance, mentorship, and watchful eye of their friend Renee Elizondo. We get pretty deep and we just talk about everything. Listen to Pretty Messed Up on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
You already know that The Challenge is the most heart-pounding competition show on television. But do you ever wonder how challenge competitors are selected?
I have to make a deal with the devil.
Or which challenges were too dangerous for TV?
Is it really blood though?
Well, you can learn all that and so much more on MTV's official Challenge podcast, hosted by none other than me, your girl Tori. And me, Anissa. We're giving you the inside scoop on the brand new season of The Challenge from two people who live through all the chaos, insanity, and the drama. Plus, we're going to be interviewing producers, other challengers, and maybe even the occasional superfan. Which means you're going to hear things on this podcast that you will not hear anywhere else. Let's go, baby. Listen to MTV's official Challenge podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.